really made a kind of weird epiphany to me today is when I figured out that Gabe Hoffman lives in West Palm Beach, Florida, and is an investor in West Palm Beach, Florida, and had a documentary about this guy, Bryan Singer. But is this Bryan Singer Epstein as well? Were they maybe setting up a little play for this guy, Bryan Singer? Maybe they didn't even bring him down to where the real shit was happening. They always had a fall guy to take him out. That's kind of where my mind's going. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. What about Alex Jones? Who else is Epstein funding? The guy was friggin' loaded. And there's accounts in the Cayman Islands. Plus, if you've got paymasters, if you've got people that will pay and do your dirty work for you, like set up ops on patriotic Americans. Well, what about that? By the way, I got a call today from somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. It was the best, guys. It was a very good call. Some things are happening all over the world. Oh yes, some things are happening all over the world. By the way, may I remind you that scientist that was busted in Portland just a couple of days or maybe a week ago was busted for producing CP, and he is 1 degree away from Epstein. That's right, Epstein. Pull it out. Pull it out. Pull it like a thing on the bottom. Pull it like a thing on the bottom. Pull that motherfucker out. And everything all falls down. Prove me wrong. You see, Epstein is so many things and so many people and so much was going on underneath the Temple of Doom. Well, I hate to be a harbinger of bad news, but people took devices into the temple, you friggin' idiots. That's why we have everything. We have everything. It's true. And you know how we do. Send this to your mom. Be like, hey mom, hey AOC, hey Rashida, is there anyone who would like to look into this Jeffrey Epstein character? Because he has some associations we should look into. You might as well do it. Is there anyone brave enough? I think all of America could be brave enough, because here's what Epstein means once you take it out. That means a bunch of bad guys on both sides go tumbling down. Like, hey, Democrats, I'll tell you what, I bet you if we pull this Jenga, we could get, we could do a lot of good for all of America, make all of America great, and get rid of the hate and infighting and people that somehow irrationally go after Q, because I think Q is a pretty cool dude. That's right, Turtle. That is correct. We must unseal. Let's see what lurks inside those records. What's inside those records? Let me see what you got in there. What do you got in there? Oh, boy! Nail you to the wall. Prove me wrong. You can't prove me wrong. Ooh, I am high. I am indeed high on amazing vibes and feelings that we are entering into a new era. But first, we might have to do a few things. That's right. See, you can't just keep covering it up because the truth's coming out and you can't put it under the ground. As hard as you try, run to it. Make a run for it, you bitch. See, you are going down, and your clowns, you are all going down to the ground. This is Talk to Light, Talk to Light. That's right. Get another proxy, bitches. Masadi hotties and motherfucking little ho dotties. You got all that fucking blackmail from Epstein Island. And you want to keep it on the low, but you can't, bro. You cannot keep it up, bro.
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it Build Back Better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
My plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, written after coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
Unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Conspiracy, conspiracy.
Conspiracy.
Working today. How's it going, everybody? There's another original content this time with Avidan, and we're going to be looking through the connections of this very shaky, shady business with Rick Warren and his associates today. I do have a lot of information to go through, so just bear with me. I know that I kind of had a few long videos and stuff like that, so hello to those who are coming into chat now. And we'll start right away by just getting into the content. I want to blow through it because the findings that I've done have been quite interesting indeed. Sorry to have that show up a second time there, my bad. Let's see if the camera is working today. Finally! All right. I was having a little bit of hiccups with the camera. I don't know why it wasn't working for the past few ones. But this is Isaac Cappy, by the way. The intro is someone that exposes the fact that there are some shady connections that Epstein has, and it's not just Epstein. We can't just pin it on him, but he seems to appear in these very interesting places. And we're going to explore an area where he does show up today. But we're going to start off with Rick Warren and his Saddleback Church in a kind of an obscure place. Because I want to show you these two guys. First, they were from Saddleback Church. They served as youth pastors, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken. They might say it here. I'm not 100% sure. But I do know they are from there, and they were definitely like working within the church, you know, spreading their love. So let's see what they did. They made a first ever quality biblical video game. This is from Rome Reports, bear in mind. As you can see, it's quite papist, if you ever saw one. But we're going to see what they have to say. And then we'll dig a little further into them. Kind of interesting that. What does that have to do with the Bible? they're progressive, right? See, they're pioneers. Just bear this in mind. I know you guys may not know who these guys are at the moment. But just bear all this in mind. They're certainly, this is a fluff piece, of course. I mean, there's like literal sheep's fleece on screen. And they're being pointed as like, pioneers going against the grain and stuff like that. And there was a very progressive point that was brought up. So just bear this in mind. It will all tie in. Just stay with me. So the scared to go towards the religious, very, very little Jesus talk, but this guy, Ruben Muhlenberg, or Moylenberg, I'm not sure which one, but one of the others, keep his name in mind. And this also, Tornado Twins. This game looks like garbage, by the way. I'm not trying to like bash like Christian games or whatever, but this is really bad. It's interesting because like these two games look completely different. This right here is like an MMO first person, whereas this is like a side scroller, man. This is not the same game. So obviously there's development going on, and for those who are not big into games or whatever, like what they're presenting right now seems to be what they're doing now as opposed to sticking to the old style of the game. So like they've made a much cheaper version, whereas like don't get me wrong, this isn't, I mean, we've seen this in a million different games as well, but at least it looks a little bit more fleshed out, whereas this looks like a children's side scroller. You could almost play it on a mobile game. And once again, we're going through the same type of topic of like trying to experience yourself as one of the characters of the Bible. We're seeing that kind of widespread, and there's a reason for that. And we'll get into it soon. We have talked about it in earlier streams, but this is a really important aspect to take in or take from this. Okay, so a lot of money. Okay, so it's pretty big on the financials. This is clearly a fluff piece to kind of boost this. So just bear that in mind. They're not from a Roman Catholic church. They're from a church called Saddleback. And they're making a video game. So they're influencing gaming culture, which is quite large these days. And they've made a lot of money. So that's the main take from these guys. Remember those names. Ruben Muhlenberg is the guy. And notice they're not really mentioning much about religion itself. Just trying, or like Jesus himself is what I meant to say. They're just saying religion in this aspect of culture. Okay, so they're really focused on that, right? Now, where else do we see these people? Well, one of them, anyways, the Ruben guy. I don't want to make any insinuations against anybody else because this is quite serious. I have been boomering this audio, haven't I? I'm sorry about that. Oh, goodness, guys. I'm so bad. I'm so bad for it. Hold on. So, the rundown of this, I'll just say it real quick. We'll just hear him talk.
You know, mention them out loud or make fun of them in a sense. But yeah, I mean, if you're saying we're gonna make the Bible into a game before you actually have anything to show, a lot of people will say, you'll step on people's toes, or this will never make money. The games industry is a little scared of going towards the religious. You know, like if there's any like world religion and you're creating anything in that realm, they're a little bit afraid of it. Whereas the film industry is much more easygoing with that as well.
That's just the main take. No need to go over too much more. I know I'm such a boomer. I'm sorry for those who stuck with me there, guys. I might even clip that part out. Absolutely brutal. But the main take is they're making a video game on the Bible. They have obviously changed their development process, okay, from this, maybe something a little better. See? Much more detailed. You're in a first view, and then this is just some really bad side scroller. So they've changed their development around, and they're just talking about financials. And you can see these guys chat, and just remember his name. And I think you can hear it now, right? Yes, you can. So let's continue. I'm a boomer, I know. Every time. Let's check in and see what happens. This is May 2017. This is actually after the Rome reports. I know this is a long time ago, but just keep holding on. I understand. Looks like it's all very obscure now, but I promise you by the end of this, you're going to see some very corrupt ties.
Junior high ministry. CBS 2 Orange County reporter Michelle Gilly is live outside Saddleback Church in Lake Forest with more now. Michelle.
Remember, Saddleback Church is Rick Warren's church.
That's right, until Ruben Muhlenberg's arrest.
What name? Ruben Muhlenberg.
Yesterday, he was a mentor for 7th and 8th graders. Orange County Sheriff's deputies tell me that he has been volunteering here at Saddleback Church for 6 years, and that is why they fear there could be more victims.
Saddleback Church is a great church, so
yeah, it's a great church.
It's really shocking to hear.
I'm not
heartbreaking.
saying that. She is.
Griselda Flores had no idea that her neighbor was a youth mentor at Saddleback Church in Lake Forest.
That's him. Pedophilia. And he's pushing in a culture.
And that he was arrested at his home across the street Thursday. The Orange County Sheriff's Department is looking for victims who may have been molested by Ruben Muhlenberg. Detectives say a parent at the popular church came forward this week and reported that the 32-year-old committed lewd acts on a teenage boy. A second victim has come forward as well.
We fear that there might be more victims in this case based on his accessibility to young children, the position that he held as a volunteer mentor. We do believe that there might be more victims.
Volunteer mentor. See, this is the problem with these new formatted churches. Like, I mention a lot with Mario. Like, they let in basically anybody who has just been born again. Within like a year, they're out teaching other people, and it could be anyone. Could be anyone trying to infiltrate, which has been happening.
Officials say the inappropriate relationship went on for the past year and that several alleged incidents occurred on the Saddleback campus in Lake Forest. Ruben Muhlenberg and his twin brother are well known in youth ministry circles, known as the Tornado Twins. They are the authors of children's books.
What's that there? A butterfly. Bear in mind, light blue. Light blue. And I'm not talking about the trans flags. I'm not talking about that. It's not about the trans, although I see the arguments why it could be, but I'm not specifically talking about trans here. I'm talking about NAMBLA stuff.
Including this one, Kidmin Reformation. The suspect has a religious website.
Kidmin. Kids Want Answers.
Kids Want Answers, and is one of the creators of a video game about the Bible.
Doesn't seem like them. The few times we've talked to them seem very polite. One of them showed my kids how his drone works. So guess we'll just be more watchful, being that they live right across the street.
Now, a former Saddleback employee who...
I feel like this would be the first time I would have ever liked a CBS Los Angeles video.
Worked with Ruben Muhlenberg tells me that several members of Muhlenberg's family worked or still do work at Saddleback Church. He also explained to me that Mr. Muhlenberg's father is a pastor from Holland. Now, we reached out to the main pastor here, Rick Warren, by email. He says that someone from his staff will get back to us, but we haven't heard anything yet.
Just say. Sorry about that. So yeah, that's them. We'll dig a little bit deeper into it. All right, Saddleback Church volunteer arrested for lewd conduct with 2 boys, also known Irvine. This is the same place that Blizzard Entertainment came out, and there was also some allegations against one of the executives that stepped down. But we have here Orange County Sheriff, so Orange County, California, or Lake Forest, California more specifically. That's where Saddleback Church is. Special Victims Detail investigators on Thursday, May 25th, arrested Ruben Muhlenberg, a 32-year-old with mentor at Saddleback Church, on suspicion of inappropriate relations with at least 2 juveniles. I wonder, it gets pretty deep into stuff, I think, in this one here. Actually, this one's pretty light. Long story is, it happened in a movie theater, apparently, with 2. And he was reported, I think, and investigated, and this is what happened here. And I think he ended up getting it's like a 12-year sentence, or it was either 12 or 14 years. But when you look in to this here, you can see how these types have been permeating into it, and you can see how they boast themselves. It seems to be like a push. First off, you have Saddleback Church pushing it here. My house full of kids couldn't be more excited about this game. We pledged the first $30 to get the game on pre-order. You should too. So there's, you know, they're posting Saddleback Church, and like they're from Saddleback Church, but didn't really mention it, but they have no problem having a review, an AstroTurf review in it. That is sketchy. Now that we know that one of them at least is involved with problems with kids. My house full of kids, he says. The twins bring infectious energy and passion to everything they do and execute with the utmost competence and professionalism. Chris King, and he's from a lot of different people. Look at this. Batman, Arkham City, Destiny, Battlefield 4, and more. Let's take a look at the video. Who trained 40,000 game developers, by the way. This is back in 2016, I think, that this video was made. And for those who play video games, I play a decent amount of video games, okay? And I've seen how video games have gotten extremely bad and dumbed down over the years. And this is quite interesting that you have these games, and there's 40,000 game developers recently that are just like, basically, they're really bad. These games today are terrible. I would rather play a game from 2000 than I would 2020. So that's very interesting to look at, like how these people, I think even in the third one, I'm not a Christian or a believer, but since the stories of the Bible influence my modern culture, I'm honored to see this major game come to life. So like you have this science converging with religion aspect to it too. Bear this in mind. So we'll keep watching this. I promise I won't cut it off every 2 seconds.
No, just hold their pay for a couple months and then fire them. All right, this is the game industry. They have no rights.
Notice just atmosphere, and you can even the little things, right? Like, do you hear like the high treble in the back? It's meant to induce a certain fear or certain uncertainty. Certain uncertainty. Okay.
Barbara, hold my calls for the rest of the day. Who do we got next? The Tornado Twizzlers.
It's Tornado Twins.
All right, well, skip the introductions, all right? What game are you pitching to me?
It's a game of the Bible. It's really...
Yeah, time out, okay? I could have sworn you said the Bible.
He did, actually. It's a massive game where you play the stories of the Bible, the characters, the battles, everything.
The games and the battles. That's funny, okay? That's what we call in publishing a bad idea. It's not gonna work. The book's 100 years old.
So it's in place in that, you can't do it because you're on the, the religious right or whatever. It's not going to work. It's instilling that fear from, like, the society that's being pushed on. Just bear that in mind. But, like, it's clearly playing off that and that they're going against the stream. This is the second piece of evidence where we have, like, that clear motive in the media push for them.
It's quite a bit older than that, but the beauty, the Passion of the Christ, Noah, and what are those vegetable movies called again?
Right, listen, okay, that's the movies. That's up on the screens. The video games, it's on a controller, all right? That's not gonna happen. It's just because industry is cutthroat. Dog eat mouse. This is Lifeful Breath over here, okay? I got 2 words. 2 words. Never gonna happen.
Millions and millions of people either love, enjoy, or respect the stories of the Bible, but nobody's ever turned it into an epic series of video games from cover to cover.
And it'd be really cool because, you almost have the feeling that you're really there. So we thought, let's do that.
Feeling that you're really there.
We started an in-depth research to the cultures, the timelines, the stories, to see how do we turn these stories into any type of video game genre, really. So we look at the Bible, and there's an incredible amount of stories. I mean, it's 66 books of them. So we have to develop them as different games. And so we're here to talk to you about the first game, the game of David.
We wanted to make a game that is enjoyable for everyone.
Okay, so I don't want to give ads to at least one of 2 of them being pedophiles, but just bear in mind, get the boy here doing his experience and journey, and I wonder, like, what happened, like, how many symbols are in the game to kind of push their stuff. And if you want to talk about symbols, the tornado itself, think about that. I don't know if you guys know much about, like, the whole spiral thing. That's not just, like, Pizzagate conspiracy theory. That was FBI stuff. That is the symbol, the spirangle, and there's a whole bunch of different ones that means pedophilia. What happens, say, just imagine you were above a tornado and you could see through its clouds, right? What would you see? Like the clouds that would probably cover the vision of it overhead. Okay, you could see down the tornado. And let's say, just for the sake of the argument, you put in a whole bunch of coloring so you can see where the wind takes you. What would you see? You'd see the spiral. Tornado twins. Things like that. They love, this is what they see, they love flaunting it. My house full of kids. I don't know if, I'm not insinuating he is, I don't know, but we got ourselves another youth ministry high school pastor from Saddleback Church saying some interestingly put part. That's for sure. So let's look into this further. That's basically what they're doing. They're putting themselves as the people that go against the grain. And as the head, or at least was the head. He is now stepping down very recently. As of last month, he started saying he's doing the process of stepping down from what is, I guess he called a lifelong calling, really, as the head preacher at this church. But bear in mind, we're just going to go through something really quick. Where he went to school. We have Warren receives a Bachelor of Arts from California Baptist University in Riverside, a Master of Divinity degree from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and a doctor. This is the one. This is the one that you want to look at, okay? A Doctor of Ministry degree from Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. Pasadena, the Fuller Theological Seminary, is a place where there has been a massive amount of division that shows people coming out of it as the NAR. Okay, let's see. The earliest faculty held theologically and socially conservative views though pastors with differing perspective arrived in the 60s and 70s. Bear these timelines in mind as we go ahead. There were tensions in the late 1950s and early 60s as some faculty members became uncomfortable with staff and students who did not agree with biblical inerrancy. So usually the first thing that they do in any cult is trying to say that, well, maybe there are some errors in the Bible. This is what they usually do. They need to get your faith away from the Word of God in order to inject heresy. Because if you're based in the Word, you're going to pick up on their stuff pretty quick. But if they flood it with this type of propaganda and start demoralizing you in that way, demoralizing your faith in the Word, you will then not take as much faith in the warnings that the Word gives towards false preachers, false teachers, and stuff like that, and you'll start listening to them. This led to the people associated with the seminary playing a role in the rise of neo-evangelism. You know, like your Billy Graham, stuff like that? Okay, that's a strong statement. This is talking specifically that this place, and I'm sure there are a couple other places, but every time I look up the NAR, it brings me back to this place, Fuller Theological Seminary. So bear this in mind. People try and say that Rick Warren and the NAR aren't connected. No, they came from the same root that was placed within Fuller. Okay, they all got corrupted in here. And if you don't believe me, this is actually a pretty scrubbed Wikipedia, and I do understand Wiki is usually that, but we get the basic information put out, and sometimes with religious topics like this, you'll have leftists that do some digging, and that stays on the website. So it's always good to kind of just check it out. This guy, C. Peter Wagner, who is the head of the NAR, which is a Pentecostal charismatic cult, also came from there, Fuller Theological Seminary, and he served as a teacher there for a long time. Professor of church growth. So when he went to school, right, when Rick Warren went there, this guy was the head of church growth. School of World Missions until his retirement. And if you go further into it, and he has created his own leadership institute, Wagner University, International Coalition of Apostles. That is the New Apostolic Reformation right there. That is basically your leadership head. I think it's a cube is one of their logos. But you'll see here, spiritual warfare. Where did it come from? This guy. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think you might even see spiritual warfare loosely written in the Bible. I get that, but they're trying to hijack the term, and these are the people that was doing it. So just bear these in mind. Fuller Theological Seminary. I want to do a little bit of a deep dive. Now that I've kind of shown the ties between this charismatic cult, and you have the Rick Warrens, which is like kind of the continued Billy Graham, if you ask me, okay? You can see that these ties come from a lot of the same roots, all right? I just want to say hi real quick to the people that showed up in chat. Jay Farina, thank you very much for the heads up. I know, I'm brutal at the audio. Chris Jones, it's good to see you as well, and Scripture Unbroken. So I just want to say hi to you guys. And now that we have that established, I will say that this video, it is a quick rundown of Rick Warren and his basic ties. It is more or less true, but he does have a lot of opinion in it. So like I probably wouldn't post this to somebody who is in the Saddleback Church trying to convert them out of it, because it is quite opinionated, and it would just, I guess, get them on the defensive. But you can see these ties. Look them up for yourselves. Just don't take this video like 100%. Look the ties up for yourself. But he does a quick rundown of a lot of the web that he weaves, which if he were to give quotes and everything like that to prove everything, it would take hours. This is condensed down into 8 minutes. So we're just going to do this for the purpose of context of where Rick Warren has spread his tentacles.
The title of this video is Rescuing the Church Part 1. The topic is Dangerous Rick Warren. Perhaps the most dangerous pastor in America today is Rick Warren. Clearly the torch of Roman Catholic ecumenical missions has been passed from Billy Graham to this man. He is part of a legacy having its roots firmly planted in the Council of Trent and Vaticans I and II. These Roman Catholic councils and documents are the marching orders for the end-time apostate church. That...
Just one sec. I'm getting a little bit of technical problems on my side. Might be a memory issue. I'm going to shut down my camera just so that it's not so resource intense.
Dominates America, and it is obvious to anyone with ears to hear and eyes to see. Rick Warren is doing his job beautifully. The Pope loves him. He loves the Pope. The media loves him. He loves the media. Politicians love him. He's a politician. Lukewarm preachers love him. He loves them. The feel-good gospel loves him. He loves it. And Rick Warren will sell you Jesus without the blood and suffering of the cross, and without acknowledging your dirty, rotten sin condition and desperate need for a Savior. And Rick Warren will try to get you to heaven by eliminating the reality of hell. In fact, this man bypasses the entire gospel of salvation in favor of a more universally palatable secular rendition void of repentance. Let this be a warning to America's churches. The gospel of Rick Warren cannot save. Rather, it is membership into the one world church and...
You'll see this symbol is pretty common, like obviously the triangle, but look at his hand. The thumb tucked into two fingers going up. You'll see that a lot. Jupiter would pose that. You know, it's in a lot of places. I don't want to go too deep into it. I think 2 of the fingers have to do with sight. 2 has to do with hearing. 1 has to do with touch, but also connected with pineal gland. I think it's something like that. This is seen in many cults from paganism onwards.
Religion of Antichrist, and it is your ticket back to the mother of harlots, the Roman Catholic Church. For those listening who are truly saved and empowered by the Holy Spirit of God, this is not news. However, unsaved social gospel Christians will find this message extremely offensive and disturbing. And rightfully so. It should be. You are being deceived and are under a strong delusion. One of the challenges of trying to wake up apostate Christians is convincing them that there is a problem. They don't have an issue with Rick Warren's gospel and his allegiance to the Pope and the Vatican. In fact, they think it's a good thing. Hallelujah, they shout, finally all Christians are uniting in the name of Jesus Christ. And they declare, isn't this what Jesus wanted? That all would become one big happy family. I hate to be the one to inform you, but there are 2 Jesus Christs, and one is real and the other is fake. The fake Jesus cares little about truth, but uses the name of Jesus Christ as a front for a one-world church and one-world religion.
That's why I keep playing this video in the beginning of this stream. It's the Son of Man in the beginning, where it compares it to Saturn and things like that. And this is what it's talking about. There's a distinct Antichrist. That figure has already been well drawn.
That is the Jesus whose actual name is Antichrist. Antichrist means in place of Christ, a substitute for Christ. That is the Jesus of the gospel of Rick Warren and his over-shepherd, Pope Francis. Now I must be very blunt. If you don't have a problem with the Pope, the Vatican, and the Roman Catholic Church, it is because you are exceedingly ignorant and spiritually blind. Your ignorance is twofold. You are biblically and historically illiterate. Otherwise, you would know that the Bible teaches prolifically against everything Rome stands for, and history backs that up to the tune of more than 60 million Christians slaughtered by papal armies and their allies. Furthermore, if you don't have a serious fear of Rome, it is because you are ignorant of the Protestant Reformation and what it truly stands for.
Yeah, I'll definitely stress the whole healthy fear as well. They are behind a lot of stuff, and a lot of people don't realize it, and when they do, they start freaking out. And there's a reason why there is understandable fear, but don't let it take over your life either, because they have something set up, so it's meant to drive you crazy if you look too hard into it. If you go too hard, too fast, it's meant to just trip you up.
And why it is the very foundation of the liberties that Americans pride themselves in. Liberties that are fast disappearing because of willful ignorance and spiritual blindness toward the wickedness in high places. I take no pleasure in saying these things, but they must be said. If you are on the Rick Warren bandwagon, you are part of the problem. It is a problem of both temporal and eternal significance. Rick Warren is marching America's churches into another dark age, such as the world has never before experienced.
Just a quick definition there. Ecumenical is the theology or a field of, I guess, action within the Catholic Church and outwards that are going into other churches to try and bring all churches back to one church. And it is fueled by the Catholic, or at least the Vatican and the people that rule it.
And the eternal consequences of that for many will be dire. Allegiance to the Vicar of Christ is allegiance to Antichrist. Both vicar and anti mean in place of.
Notice that Rick Warren was at Georgetown, which is a Jesuit university. Francis is a Jesuit pope. I don't know if this is a real picture. This one here, this almost looks like it's faked. So just don't let, I'm not saying that this is a real picture here, but you can very well go on. You can see where he meets the Pope here. You can see where he's been meeting lots of different people here. He always makes it on TV and stuff like that. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Don't go like copy pasting this picture. It could be real for all I know, but I don't think it is. So, but there's plenty of evidence where that he rubs elbows with all these kinds of people indeed.
A substitute for Christ and another Christ. The Pope calls himself Vicar of Christ. He is the Antichrist, and Rick Warren is his chief apostle to America's churches. Be warned, churches of America, the book of Revelation says all who pledge allegiance to the Antichrist, the substitute for Christ, will find their place in the lake of fire. Remember, I didn't make this up. You can find it in the 14th chapter of Revelation, verse 11. The Word of God reads, "And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name." Rick Warren is marching you straight into the lair of the beast of Revelation, and you are going along happily declaring peace, love, and unity in Jesus. Wake up. Do you think the Antichrist is going to pose as anything wicked? No, he poses as a force for good, never officially or publicly pronouncing his true identity. Think about it. That wouldn't fly. Almost no one would go for it. He knows it, and you need to know it too. You are being deceived. Both the real Jesus and the Apostle Paul warned of it. Paul wrote to the Thessalonians, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come unless there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Rick Warren is the preeminent 21st century ambassador of the falling away, and he serves Rome, the Antichrist religious system, and he submits to the very seat of Antichrist himself, the lair of the Vicar of Christ, the Pope of Rome.
Okay, it gets a little bit repetitive, so I'll hold it off there, but you know, he's made his point. And as you can see, he's not wrong. See, we have Obama here at Saddleback Forum. Okay. See that S there in the back? That's the new logo. I'll show you some of the old logos now in 1 second because there's a reason why they changed it. There's a nice little video where it looks like he owns Sanjay Gupta and Anderson. It's clearly, when you know the background of all these people, you know that it was like clearly set up to make him look good. That he looks like he gives a great answer to a softball question. It's like the why does God allow viruses? You know what I mean? Like, it's just the grade 1 stuff. So people will still believe that kind of like, you know, why does God allow bad things to happen? You know what I mean? It's the same argument over and over and over that you hear from these types. But he gives like a decent answer to it. Of course he should, if he's been around for decades and decades. So it makes him look a lot better than what he is. But then here you go. You see him, bear this in mind. You see him at the TED Talks. TED Talks. Don't forget about the TED Talks. Because at the end of this, it's going to blow your mind. All right? If you don't know about the TED Talks thing, oh boy, you get ready for this, okay? I got a kitty meowing at me to get out, so I'm just going to let him out real quick, and we're going to move on with this. I'm just going to show you the logos that they have had in the past. We'll go from there while I let the kitty out. Just 1 sec. All right, sorry about that. So now going into the logos, the video, though repetitive, makes its point. even looking into the logos of these people starts raising a few questions. Just give me a moment. We'll go through it, and I promise you'll be a little bit blown. Here we go. First off, remember we've been talking about a broken blue sphere. We've been finding it basically everywhere we look. It's not a coincidence. It's not like I've been looking up broken blue sphere and trying to find all the topics I'm going to speak on. It has nothing to do with that. It seems to be that every time I look into some sort of subversion or things on pedophilia, things like that, these things seem to appear. That's all. Here we go. 3 stripes as well as the 3 stripes. You know where else we've seen that, right? On like Obama's logos and a whole bunch of different other logos, like I think a Paul Ryan bid also had it. The peace plan, a broken blue sphere and 3 marks. Keep going. I promise it gets worse. It gets worse. Summer camp. Well, I'll give him that one. 3 peaks here. Can't, maybe not. Here we go. So you have 7 peaks here, right? Like the 7 mountains mandate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Right? I'm not that bad of an accountant. Right? They're all 10, I believe. All of them are 10 long. No, we got 9 here on this one. 10 here on this one. I wonder what would happen if you did like the real math on these things. But that's the 7 mountains mandate and the obvious, that symbol that they keep going through. But let's keep going. We got the global symbol. That's his Peace Action Network. That was the same one that had the broken circle and the dove looking one. But they also had another logo. That global thing. Here we go. Saddleback Church. Look at this one. Spiraling. Broken blue sphere. Like, this is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. I don't talk about, like, how everything is this and everything is that. Like, read this, read that, like, and numbers and all that stuff. All I'm saying is, isn't it interesting how we keep finding broken blue spheres everywhere we look? Isn't it interesting? Now, maybe it's made to hyper-sensationalize you as well, so bear that in mind as you're looking at things. But look at the smaller ones that go from thick to thin, embedding each other. You see that everywhere. Makes this a little bit sick too, because if you remember the Faith Kids ministries, like the Saddleback Church youth ministries, that's where these guys were volunteering, quote unquote. Some interesting architecture here, but I don't want to go too deep into that. You have so I want to find one more. I'm pretty sure there was one that I missed that is quite gross. Easter at Saddleback, you have the rays coming out. So for those who have, done their research on the occult, this should come as no surprise. That this guys see, we got Celebration Church logo, Gateway Church. These are like, connected churches, things like that. They all have these same kind of like things to them. And then you see here, this was a month ago, just over a month ago now, Rick Warren to retire as lead pastor of Saddleback Church. Now, we don't know why. I know there's a theological dispute within Saddleback. I think they had like female pastors where they're also part of the Southern Baptist Church. Remember, we were looking at his other seminaries, and they were actually quite Baptist. And now they're having females, whereas the SBC doesn't allow that. So they're splitting up in that way. So it could have something to do with that. But the more that you look into these exact same symbols that you find everywhere, like the tornado, right? Because that's what that other one was. just like a tornado, and spirals and like these crescent wisps. Right? Same kind of thing, as above, so below, Saddleback Church, and they nest within each other. You see this everywhere. You see it everywhere there. I don't think it's just these two dudes. I don't think it has anything to do with just these two dudes. I think these are two of many implants. Just like what was happening on YouTube in like 2013, and of course is still happening right now, but you would see these influx of these people that would only talk about religion and going up against the grain, and we got to call out the satanic Illuminati and all that kind of stuff. It all came around the same time, a big influx of these people, and you can't tell me that it's not a coincidence. And I'm going to show you that it's not a coincidence, actually. So this is the, it just mentions like a whole bunch of different reasons why it could. You can take a look into it if you want. It is LA Times, but just bearing in mind, I just wanted to show you that Saddleback Church is now rudderless without him, and they are getting new leadership, but he was the head of it, and he was the one that oversaw. This is the main place that they were committing the pedophilia. This is the main Lake Forest, I think it's called, the area that they are. And it kind of gives a sick meaning to Saddleback when you really think about it. If this is, if it's not just him. So I started looking into a little bit more of his ties, and I came across this website which was pulled, but I was able to find an archive of it from back in 2007. And you can see his connections back then. You have Peter Drucker, that's another guy that you should totally take a look into. It is about like those massive mega churches and things like that. This is how they've evolved from that through the evangelist point. And you can see that, like we were talking about before, Fuller Theological Seminary, a lot of these people will come from there. So this is where they start filtering in through, and they start breaking into popular society. And you have Rick Warren and the Syrians. Rick Warren and Senator Barack Obama. This was before he was president, right? 2007. Warren was invited Senator Barack Obama to speak on the Congregation of the Faithful on December 1st, 2006. So this would be, well, probably around the same time that he was like starting to make his run, right? Pretty intense. Pretty intense. Rick Warren, the big one that we need to talk about, though. There is a lot that you could, Aspen Institute, by the way. There's a lot of people that you should look into there. Rick Warren going to the Minerva Awards, by the way. So this is supposed to be a Christian pastor going to. Minerva is is a goddess of wisdom in the Roman pantheon, or not pantheon. Oh no, she was in a pantheon, actually, to be quite honest. And it's also associated with the owl of Minerva, which, if you know about the whole, Hotel California, that I probably would get like kicked off for talking about now on YouTube. It's very, very, the occult is very focused on wisdom, and the owl specifically being the embodiment of wisdom. But what we need to look at today, Alpha Course as well, beware, as he endorsed it himself. There's definitely things to look into with the Alpha Course as well. But we're looking into the Templeton Foundation today. This is where we start seeing the connections all come together. It's pretty intense. Rick Warren, the Templeton Foundation, and the Power of Purpose. Bear that Power of Purpose in mind. Sponsored by the John Templeton Foundation, is a worldwide essay competition with the theme The Power of Purpose, with total grand prizes of $500,000. So all the prizes given out equal that, and a grand prize number one for $100,000. There's no entry fee. Essays should be blah 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 blah. Going for people 18 years of older, and just quite small. It's just a small essay on it, and they're giving out $100,000 for the thing. But once you start looking more into what the Templeton website says and what they believe and what they've been doing, it starts to cause suspicion. Their website reads, in day-to-day life, we encounter men and women who seem driven by something outside of themselves, whose commitment to their profession or volunteer activities, their community, or their cause seems to rise above the necessary, above the possible, above even the human. Now that's an interesting thing to say. Indeed, we say that such people we see, or that in such people we see, quote unquote, the divine spark. Many religious traditions, both Eastern and Western, subscribe to the idea that there is something of God's presence in each of us. So panentheism. There's a little bit of God in everything, or a little bit of God in all of us. Even for the growing number of people who describe themselves as spiritual but not necessarily religious, there is a certain attachment to this concept of the divine spark. It is this sense that our lives can be guided from within by something more important than our simple survival, something not merely intellectual either, something in our souls. Now there's actually a website for them, Templeton.org. You can read into it later, but we're going to actually go a little bit more deeper into it. So just bear that in mind. The Council for a Parliament of World Religions. I think that was linked to their website. Or no, they were just talking about it a little bit more. Promotes interreligious dialogue and plans for the world's spiritual future by having government institutionalize a global ethic. This is 2007, guys. I have heard that Sir John Templeton serves on the Parliament of World Religions Board of Trustees, and while I've been able to confirm this, it is known that it is known that the Templeton Foundation has been one of the financial contributors to the Parliament. The media transparency site lists a donation of $47.5K over 2 years. Now, they teach a lot more about Unity Church, trying to bring everybody together. Remember, we were just talking about ecumenism. This is the ecumenical push to try and bring everybody together. And it seems like the more you go into the Templeton Institute, it becomes more and more clear that that is exactly what they do. As you can see here, Templeton is also linked to some very important ties in globalism. Very important and wealthy people that have known to be involved in globalism, both politically and religiously. Templeton's beliefs are clearly expressed in his numerous writings. So this is the Sir John Templeton. He is an evolutionist, pantheist, universalist, and has occultic views. His writings display a rejection of God, the God of the Bible. Christ is the only way to God. He claims that heaven and hell are states of mind we create here on earth, that truth is relative, and that Christianity is no longer relevant today as it was in Christ's day. So, this is the guy. When you start looking into the Templeton Institute, you start realizing that he has much more ties to our right-wing side than one might realize. We have the John Templeton Foundation, which is what he started. It's a philanthropic organization that reflects the ideas of its founders, John Templeton, and they call it the intersection. You'll see this in all throughout their website, the intersection of religion and science. So you start getting these intellectuals. Can you think of any intellectuals on maybe like right-wing YouTube or something like that that have been flirting with God? But really it's about like metaphysics. But they do talk about Jesus and things like that. They kind of flirt with it on the right. But then they also talk just as much about metaphysics and things like that. This is where we're getting them. And I know, it sounds like I'm just shooting off the hip, right? No, I have receipts for you for that as well. Just give me a moment. I'm trying to lay it all out. There's a lot of information to this. One thing to bear in note, we have the spiral right here as well. Look, if you were to look down from a tornado, you get the spirals. And you see the spirals everywhere. I don't know if you'll call this one a broken blue sphere. That would be a little bit too abstract, I think. However, you do see that good old spiral that you see everywhere. Everywhere. It was started up in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, and you can see that it is certainly no small endowment. The expenses just for 1 year alone in 2016 was $182 million, and they have an annual revenue at that point of 30 million coming in. Now, the more I look into these guys, there's like companies like, you know, the Soros Fund, the Open Society Foundation, you have the Rockefeller Fund and things like that. It seems to me like this is the right wing conglomerate of donations, because there's so much money going in through this. We hear that Templeton gave, like, I think it was another 500 million. Like, I know they only mention about a couple $100 million here, but there's actually, like, the total assets are into the billions. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to just give you a little bit of a rundown on these guys. You can see that Rick Warren is it's not just the Power of Purpose website, but if you were to look more into it, you will find lots of different, oh, this is me. I was confused on that for a second, but you will find plenty of information at which Rick Warren and the John Templeton organization they work directly with each other, and they have a lot of the exact same ideas as well. Like, Rick Warren is very universalist, meaning that he believes that the Pope is like the head authority. He thinks that both Eastern and Western, again, like, there's all different types of religions that see the same thing. Like, he's part of that same universalist heresy, and it's spoken the exact same way in the John Templeton Foundation. So I want to look a little bit further into John Templeton himself. He was an American-born British investor, banker, fund manager, and philanthropist. We keep seeing this word pop up, eh? In 1954, he entered the mutual fund market and created the Templeton Growth Fund, which averaged growth over 15% per year in 38 years. That's quite good. A pioneer of emerging market investing in the 1960s. Money magazine named him arguably the greatest global stock picker of the century in 1999. And you can see that he was born in Winchester. He attended Yale. And someone was mentioning in my chat a little bit before, he belonged to, and if I pronounce this wrong, I'm sorry, but I don't care anyways, because it's quite occultic, Elihu. This is the secret society that is in Yale. I know there's a couple other ones, like you can see the Skull and Bones and Scroll and Key and stuff like that. But this one is its own. And it is somewhat, I guess, conservatively based, but not completely. And you will also see, this is the one to keep in mind. Balliol, I think is how it's pronounced, Balliol College. It is out of Oxford. Okay? Keep this one in mind. I'm not done with that yet. He was a student of the father of value investing, Benjamin Graham. So he is big into religion. He has been to different Balliol is I believe, was it Catholic? That's in there. But it's a very religious-based college. There's a lot of different arts that are in that college, and he came out of there as well. So he's supposed to be, like a regular, Christian or whatever Catholics believe is Christian. It could be either or, but he is preaching some very universalist stuff. Now, he has a son who is also named John Templeton Jr., but he also goes by Jack Templeton. Bear that in mind as well. He passed on his church, or his institution, to his son Jack, or John Jr. is his name. It's the same person. And when he did that, he was also a pastor and a teacher. Templeton Honors College, and named his honor, not a pastor, or not a teacher, but a pastor. He was in which church? I know that he said that he was going into a church as well, but he was also a member of the Elihu Senior Society from Yale. But just bear this in mind, it is a lineage here, and this is where it took into. But his father comes from Balliol. Now, I started looking into things because when you see John Templeton and you see his investments and his son's investments into creating religion trusts and the foundations that were starting to give out awards, and he also, I'm not sure if it shows here, Templeton Press. They started growing press. So I was like, investor and British banker, fund manager, and philanthropist. That reminded me a lot of Robert Maxwell. So I started going down that road. It was a bit of a rabbit hole. And when I noticed the Balliol College, this is where it struck a bell. Okay, just bear with me. We're getting to it now, guys. We're almost done with all of this information. I'll push that one aside for now. Once I started looking up, thinking about the Robert Maxwell ties or potential connections, I just started floating the names and running searches on, Epstein and stuff like that. And then we have a report here that I found from Harvard itself concerning Jeffrey Epstein's connection to Harvard University. And I looked up the Templeton Foundation, and we have 8 hits. Epstein's role in PEDs obtaining a grant from John Templeton Foundation. There's a lot on this stuff, but what I'll show you here, Epstein played an indirect but significant role in assisting Professor I think it's Novak, but maybe Nowak, in securing a $1.5 million grant from the John Templeton Foundation. Novak, he's one of the first, or one of the central people in the science philanthropy side of Jeffrey Epstein. He has directed, we've talked about him here before, actually. I think he started at Harvard and then went to MIT and got a building for himself that was funded by Epstein. And the project was funded by Epstein, and it had to do with, I think, evolutionary biology. If I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere in that range, either evolutionary biology or evolutionary psychology. Okay? But we keep seeing these connections, Professor Nowak, and now we have the John Templeton Foundation, who has so many ties to Rick Warren. It's not just a couple things that they funded, guys. This is like they are connected. They are connected. And we see now a direct tie with Epstein. Or, well, I guess they say it's an indirect, significant role. But the more that we're going to keep seeing, this is no accident. No accident. You can keep going through. We understand that the idea was to ensure that if the Templeton Foundation funded only part of the project, for example, 50-50. So what Epstein was saying was that any donations that were given would be matched by the Templeton Foundation. Now, I believe they ended up in this time, because this was when the heat was really coming on to Epstein. Templeton Foundation pulled out of that direct tie with him. But the simple fact exists that they were very tied together, and there's been many examples. We're going to keep seeing it. Okay? I think when you look into, I think I can find some Santa Fe stuff here in this one. No, not on this one. Templeton Foundation. And they have no records of the statements on things. Like they've completely tried to wipe these ties, and we'll keep seeing it. This, though, once I've started looking up Robert Maxwell and John Templeton, I ran a strict search, so that it would show both things. And I came across this. Brief Encounters, Notes from a Philosopher's Diary by Anthony Kenny. I don't have the year here on this, because they have limited many pages on it. But what hit was this. 3 businessmen, Warwick Fairfax, Robert Maxwell, and John Templeton. This is indeed the Sir John Marks Templeton, with the son Jack Templeton, and they do mention it later in the sources here. Now, this isn't a direct tie. I wanted to figure out who this person was, so obviously I went to the introduction, right? And what do I find? But this man, pretty interesting guy, he went to La Sagesse, or he was working with La Sagesse. And La Sagesse is wisdom in French. in a Liverpool suburb is where his schooling was strictly ecclesiastical, meaning like strictly like the religiously based, but heavily focused on writing. And for the first 5, I studied at the Jesuit school of St. Francis Xavier in the center of the city. So just bear this in mind. My education was interrupted by periods of evacuation to the countryside to avoid the German bombs which were following on Merseyside. At the age of 12, I entered Upholland College. I bet that would be a junior seminary of the Liverpool Archdiocese, and remained there for 6 years. So this guy was Jesuit trained. Now, he mentions later that he quote unquote leaves the church. You don't leave church after 5 years of young schooling. Like, it seemed like when he mentions it, you can read further through. This is, again, I gave the title earlier, Notes from a Philosopher's Diary. He just nonchalantly leaves these people, and he ends up at Oxford. Okay? This doesn't just happen, all right? My academic discipline, once I had left the church, quote unquote, was philosophy, even though philosophy is like Jesuit specialization. So he's still going into the stuff that they were teaching, but he, quote unquote, leaves the church. Oh, yeah, okay. But we find, where does this man go? I was not looking up this word, but where does this man go? I was elected to a tutorial fellowship at Balliol. Same college, Balliol in Oxford. This Jesuit graduate, quote unquote, leaves the church and finds himself a tutorial fellowship at Balliol. Now, just to make a long story short, he was appointed to Balliol, made a Master of the Arts of the university. All this stuff just happens, right? It just comes to you like that. Now, it seems like an intelligent dude, don't get me wrong, but the story that we're getting from him is scrubbed. Let's put it that way. Now that we have the basis that this man that is writing this book has Jesuit training, we now need to figure out, why are they linking these two people together? Okay, Warwick Fairfax, another interesting person to look into. I'm not trying to what do you call it, kick him out. I will say that the relationship that they had is through Balliol, but we need to move on just for the sake of brevity here, because I know this is a lot of content. Robert Maxwell, publisher. This is indeed, you will see that it is Ghislaine Maxwell's father. In the early 1960s, Robert Maxwell expressed the wish to create a fellowship at Balliol. 1960s. Why do we keep seeing these 1960s, 1970s? What's going on here? We see it over at Fulton, and now we're seeing it at Balliol. If I remember rightly, he wanted some academic work to be done about the best way to curb the power of trades unions. There was solemn debate about whether to accept the offer, particularly among the science fellows. The older among them did not want to have anything to do with the owner of Pergamon Press, which now you know that is the same person, because its journals published scientific rubbish. The younger ones, however, said that the scientific establishment was so stuffy that that Pergamon provided the only way for bright new ideas to get established. And now that there's a bunch of Jesuits in there, they're all like, oh, this would be great to do. This would be great to do, man. Youth won the debate. It's interesting how they said youth won the debate. And so there began a long and often close connection between the college and the Maxwell family. 3 of Robert's sons came to Balliol: Philip in 66, Ian in 75, and Kevin in 1982. Who are some other people that went to Balliol? Here, I'll give you a little hint. University of Oxford. Became part of the Balliol Interdisciplinary Institute. My goodness, I can't speak this week. But yeah. Oh yeah. He's out of Balliol, Oxford. And we'll get to him later. But I just wanna point this out. how these connections, all these people that keep on surfacing, have so much contact. My own first contact with Robert Maxwell was unconnected with the college. In 1978, I published a book, The Aristotelian Ethics. Man, it really hit me here today. That was an early venture of stylometry, that is to say, the statistical study of style. When I wrote it, there were many textbooks of statistics for students of science and medicine, but there was nothing in English for the historian or the literary scholar. When I finished my work on Aristotle, I decided to write the textbook I wished I had, or I had had, while I was working on the text. In it, I took all the examples and exercises from literary contexts and moved at a gentle pace suitable for those with no more than A-level mathematics. I know it sounds like it's, a bunch of hubbubaloo, but just bear this in mind. It seems that it was basic stuff. Thinking that a conventional publisher might be unwilling to take on such an oddly conceived book, I offered it to Pergamon. Maxwell gave it a warm welcome, but turned down the various titles I suggested. He insisted that it would be called The Computation of Style, though the techniques it explained required no more than a pocket calculator. The book would only sell, he told me, if the title contained some allusion to computers. So you can see how these people twist words and all that kind of stuff. I think it's quite important, and you can see here if you want a little bit of juice, because we know Ghislaine. In 1981, Maxwell's daughter Ghislaine, or I should say her name, Ghislaine, applied to come to Balliol to read modern languages. Given that she had a French mother, I expected there would be no problem about her competence, but no. The French tutors decided that her A-level results were not up to the mark. It fell to me to telephone the news to her father, Bob. I said nervously, "I have some bad news for you. We aren't going to take Ghislaine." I waited for the thunderbolt to fall. "Quite right," came the answer. "She's an idle chit of a girl. I'll make her do some serious work and send her back to you next year." And indeed, when she returned the following year, she had improved her grades and was accepted. When I do searches for Ghislaine's media that she's involved with and things like that, it seems that she's actually quite accomplished in French, Croatian. I think that was through her next boyfriend after Epstein. Also, there's some Malay in there. She's able to pick up on Malay languages, I think. There's a couple others. She did seem to really then focus on languages. It seems when I see propaganda that looks like it's Ghislaine writing it, they all seem to be, at least translated well enough to the French that I see. Her French is pretty good, so I find this actually a very interesting part of the conversation, that she was probably, language is a big thing with the intelligence agencies as well, right? But anyways, we need to move on a little bit there, but you can see where the connections are. You can keep reading on from another time. There's Jacques Delal there, which is another big name. But you can see now that there is an establishment with Balliol and Robert Maxwell. Now, where does John Templeton come in? It is a separate story, but it's through the same person who was the Master of Arts, I believe, that we were just talking about. Was it Master of Arts or Religion? Or one or the other. It doesn't matter. He's a Jesuit implant, that's all. But he's talking about his connections here. Now, reading on to John Templeton, philanthropist. In 1983, there was a celebration at Rhodes House to mark the 80th anniversary of the Rhodes Trust. Cecil Rhodes, another interesting rabbit hole to go down. You should certainly do so. We won't do it for the purposes of brevity here, but just to let you know, that's certainly something to look into. Some sketchy characters there. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh were the guests of honor. I was commissioned to present to Prince Philip a 1934 Rhodes Scholar, John Templeton, to a world champion investor who had made many millions by buying up penny shares. I explained to the Prince that Templeton had made a gift of £3 million to convert the Oxford Centre for Management Studies into Templeton College. So you can see the infestation grows then, right? The Prince did not forget he was Chancellor of Cambridge University. He tempered his congratulations with the remark, "I can think of another place where the money could have been better spent." Having my own eye on Templeton as a potential benefactor to his old college of Balliol, I could only murmur to myself, "That makes two of us."
Later, I was placed on the advisory board of Templeton College. The Jesuit, right? This Jesuit speaking in first person. he's placed on the advisory board of Templeton College. So the research institute of the John Templeton Foundation was headed up by a Jesuit. Or he says ex-Jesuit. Yeah, okay, but he goes into school for philosophy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. The benefaction was not a large one to establish an entire college, and I once asked John why he had not offered a more generous endowment. It's a school for business studies, he said. It's not going to be any good unless it teaches people how to raise money for themselves. And it's almost like this is the shell template for all of these NGOs out there. It's like they are shoveled money just enough to get themselves going, and it makes them crave more, and it makes them try and make more money for themselves. Like all the shilling YouTube channels out there, doesn't it sound a little bit familiar? He made me a trustee of the college's endowment, and we used to meet a couple times a year to discuss its investment. Some of John's proposals were hair-raising. In one year, he proposed that we sell all our holdings and place half the proceeds in New Zealand bonds and the other half with an investment manager in Hong Kong who I happen to know placed his trades on the basis of astrology. Very interesting. Remember, this is in the 80s. This is in the 80s. This is when Epstein was with Bear Stearns, and they have lots and lots of investments in Hong Kong. I'm not too sure about New Zealand. We don't know who it is. Of course, I'm jumping the gun by saying it's Epstein. It could be somebody else that runs a sundial on their island and runs banking investments day to day through there. And I don't know if you've ever read into Epstein's investments, but when he was an investment fund manager, he would never deal with accounts that were less than $1 billion. Right? And apparently he was always known to have some secret formula. And this is how he made money. This makes this this is not the boom Jeffrey Epstein thing that I'm showing you right now. There's much more to it. This is just a little thing. It makes you think. He won't say it. Who I happen to know, but he won't say it. This is your Jesuit telling all, right? You can see where he's scrubbing and where he's not. But placed his trades in the basis of astrology. It was difficult for me to challenge the judgment of one of the world's most successful investors. But fortunately, a fellow trustee, a hard-headed oil magnate, was able to convince John that such a portfolio would not be well viewed by the Charity Commission. As time went on, with such a portfolio would not be well viewed. As time went on, the endowment proved more and more inadequate, and the college was forced into amalgamation with another institution to make what is now Green Templeton College. Other than investment, John's greatest concern was with religion. In 1970, once again, he went over there. He founded the Templeton Prize for Progress in Religion and set it at a valuable comparable to that of the Nobel Prizes. Since then, many distinguished people have been awarded the prize, though it has changed its original name. John once asked me to serve on the panel of judges who select the prize winners. I refused on the grounds that in religion there is no objective test of progress. Tell me, John, I said, was Martin Luther a disaster for religion or a great leap forward? He later temporarily offered the prize for progress in human values. So there's a lot more progress in this than what they like to talk about, you know? That's interesting. Once the prize had become well known, John persuaded Prince Philip to present it to each year's winner, and we can verify this for ourselves. Prince Philip Templeton Award. Sorry if I have extra letters somewhere. My still got my bandage on. But yeah, see, Templeton Prize winners, he was the one that was giving it out throughout these years. Yeah, verifiable there anyways. The Jesuits speak some truth indeed. On the one occasion I attended the ceremony in Buckingham Palace, I was there because I had chosen to make the speech commending the winner. The prince appeared to have forgotten the occasion and had to be brought in from some gardening work. What? Anyways, getting a little bit weird here, but as you can see, that these people with the royal family, we have the religious ties, and as I've shown you before, the John Templeton Foundation, have the connection, a massive connection with Rick Warren, and they're all basically talking about, you know, oneness and unity and all this stuff. Look, the most famous venture of the foundation, this one's actually pretty good. I will read this part. The most famous venture of the foundation was the Great Prayer Experiment of 2006. The Great Prayer, right? Think of it like the unity. An empirical test of the proposition that praying for sick patients improves their health. 3 churches in different parts of America mounted prayer campaigns, and 1,802 coronary bypass patients were divided into 3 groups: those who were prayed for but did not know it, those who were not prayed for and did not know it, and those who were prayed for and were told so. When the results were published, there was no difference between those who were prayed for and those who were not. Oddly, those in group 3 fared worse than those in group 1. The experiment was widely mocked, but it was very much in the spirit of John Templeton. So you start seeing these stupid, like, these division things, you know, like, why is this, like, I didn't really spend too much time looking at these tests and possible contaminations and things like that, because to be honest, I think that's what they want you to focus on, just these ridiculous kind of assertions. They've been starting to push this in. 2006 was a great time because that was just right when Obama was starting to come up, right? Remembering all the media crap about not just Obama. I'm not just singling him out, but this was like where this was becoming the general course of action, to have such weird ads and all this stuff, and weird divisions start to take place. That was the main take from it, right? And you have this guy, John Templeton. This was really his thing, his most famous venture, the Great Prayer Experiment. So, actually, you know what? This is still great. Let's just quickly finish up. The foundation has indeed also produced useful work, particularly in the years when its chief executive was Chuck Harper. He focused its research on issues in which scientists and theologians did have important things to say to each other. I attended an excellent conference in Paris on the origin of the world. Their first-rate cosmologists and ranking theologians found it possible to engage in constructive dialogue. I mean, I don't know how profitable that is, in my opinion, but at the end of the day, it's much less harmful than what do you call it? The division that we were seeing around the world. But after John died, his son, Dr. Jack Templeton, and this is why I brought up his son. I know it was a little bit boring to get down to his son and everything like that, but he took over that, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it says it here, but I'm pretty sure he was heading up a church. He was, what do you call it? One second. He took it over. So Dr. Jack Templeton, under the slogan, "Let Sir John be Sir John, let Harper go," that Chuck Harper guy who was open to, you know, at least discourse, and threw away the academic respectability that he had acquired for the foundation. To me, it seemed as if John's son wished to turn the foundation into the basis of a personality cult. I was a member of the foundation's advisory board at the time and decided to resign in protest. You know, you got to be like jumping the shark when the Jesuits like, "No way, I'm out of here, man." but listen, the damage had already been done. The corruption that you see Jesuits, and I'm sure he's not the only operative, you know, it had already been done. But I'm just making the joke. Like, if he's jumping ship from this, you know something's wrong. Now that Dr. Jack himself, the son, he actually passed away, I think 2015, it remains to be seen in what direction the foundation will travel. So let's do a little quick check. So yeah, he died in May 16th, 2015. So this book wasn't written, you know, any later than that. He was able to write this chapter afterwards. So this is actually quite a revelation, this book. I really enjoyed reading what I could. There's so much omitted. Like, so much. I might even buy it. Like, I'm not trying to shill it. I'm not telling people to buy it, but I might buy it myself just so that I can read the rest of these ties. There's a Jesuit priest telling all. It's obviously his like bucket list to write this autobiography. There's only certain things that he can say because I'm sure he has family and stuff like that, right? You can, but so he scrubbed what he could, but there's still loads of information. Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, going to Balliol College. They're all from Balliol College. John Templeton, Balliol College. Maxwell's, Balliol College. And who was in there? Who was in there? It goes further with the Maxwell thing because where he was Jewish, they talk about how he was able to fit right in with the Catholic thing. And he even, I think, there was another guy, Barry, it was like Barry Goodman or something like that, and he became the head or like one of the head protesters against the defilement of some Christian theology within this church, and he was Jewish. Like it was really like this Balliol College, there's something going down here, and it's tied to so many people. And if you don't believe me, if you think that I'm just boring you off the hilt with Balliol College, take a look at this. All right, this is the Epstein New Mexico Little Black Book. I think it's the New Mexico one. All right, but this is the Epstein. This is the Epstein Black Book. One of them. There's a couple. But on this, let's go down. Balliol College, Oxford, England. Right below Alec Baldwin, because we always focus on the Alec Baldwins. You're going to find Donald Trump in here. You're going to find all the Trumps in here, by the way. Like the ones that are old enough to be talking to. All the Trumps are here. Which, you know, like, does it prove that they are involved? No, but what are you doing with Balliol College specifically? Conrad Black, which is a big Canadian guy, right? So, like, look at that. Balliol College, Oxford. This is his black book. And another place I want to show you, because this will make sense in 2 seconds. Hold on. Hold on. Yes, Kitty. I know we got the Sachs here. Rothschild's here. Like, he knows them all, you know? Oh, yes, my kitty. See, he's not a fan of this, but hold on. You will find... Oh, no. Oh, there's the Trumps. There's the Trumps there. Blaine and Robert. Ivanka. There's a Donald Trump here somewhere else. Like, I think this is this book. Yeah, there you go. Robert and Blaine. There's a whole bunch of Chris Tucker. Right? But one of them, I can't quickly find it. Soros Private Equity Partners, David Wassong. You should know that name if you're looking into the whole elites and powers that be. That's a huge name. Francesca von Habsburg, who was also one of the founding citizens of Terramar. Habsburg. They owned like half of Europe before World War One. Barbara Walters. But the one I wanted to point out is the University of Santa Fe, because if you don't know, I think this is the black book that he had at his own Santa Fe ranch in Santa Fe County. It wasn't in the city, it was in the county, just like in the middle of nowhere in the desert, basically. And this John Templeton Foundation, which Epstein was heavily involved with, has given Santa Fe a boatload of money. A boatload of money. It says 1 million here, but there's actually much more. There's far more given. Just 1 second. Okay, here we go. Santa Fe Institute, and Bill Richardson. Anybody from New Mexico or around that area know who that is? That's the governor of New Mexico. His security agent, he has the number. Office direct. Phone, like I guess home phone. Fax here. And the Santa Fe Institute. Yeah, and you can see like this is like the ranch. This is the ranch where it was. And look at this. Just a couple things here. You'll see that some of them are like the Russian names and that they don't speak English when you go through them. Sabina, German. Reflexologist. So like masseuse, right? Yoga. Sabrina, Rachel, Linda. Scumbag. New Mexico though, see? And that's the governor of New Mexico, Santa Fe Institute. And then when you look up, I don't think it's just that showing up on this. So that loads, that'll take a second to load. But you can see where all this is going, right? Templeton Religious Trust, like Brian is saying in chat. Sorry, I haven't really caught up with the chat. I know there's a slow one today, so I just wanted to get through this information real quick. But the Templeton Religion Trust is one of the 3 charitable entities established by Sir John Templeton. Yeah, and the other thing is too, you start seeing the Templeton Foundation links to Cato Institute, and then you start seeing the same characters, you know, these people on YouTube that you keep seeing, like the Sam Harrises and Richard Dawkins. Remember they talk about the intellectual dark web? Well, this is where they all seem to show up. Just check this out. Edge.org. To arrive at the edge of the world's knowledge, seek out the most complex and sophisticated minds, put them in a room together, and have them ask each other questions that they are asking themselves. Now, just when we go into these people, Marina Abramovich, the spirit cooker, you know, right? Alan Alda, you know, they try and gather everybody in. Look, Christopher Anderson, the curator of TED conferences, TED Talks, author of TED Talks, right? This all starts cluing in real quick. We'll just check this out. Richard Dawkins. Bill Gates, right? They're all people contributing to edge.org, which is like this network of people, these great new scientists. Like, this is where religion and stuff collides with science, and they say that it's the smartest place ever. This is what they were like talking about. However, let's take a look at this. There's a couple names that you won't find here. There's no Epstein here, right? But if I go Epstein here, the billionaires dinner. This was like the technology billionaires dinner that they were talking about, that they were doing for about 20 years since 1999. I don't know if they still do it this year, but oh yeah, let's take a look into this. Why is Epstein showing up here? What's this? So this is the billionaires dinner of 2015. Let's see, Epstein here. Nathan Myhrvold. Do you know who Nathan Myhrvold is? He was with Microsoft. And this is 2000. And as you can start looking, John Brockman is the head of Edge. And he has his ties to all of these same people as well. And him and Epstein, these billionaires dinners, do you know who funded all of the billionaires dinners? All of them, by the way? Jeffrey Epstein. He funded them all. Like, he was this is the reason why you find him in some pictures, because he was gathering them all together. Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, this is 2008, Anne Wojcicki, Steve Case, that's a name I haven't seen in a long time. They must have offed him. Katinka Matson, hold that name. Okay? Look at all these people. Look, John Brockman with Jeff Bezos. This is supposed to be like these groups are supposed to be a little bit more right-wing. Richard Dawkins. at the Edge dinner in London. Now I know maybe this is just a bunch of scientists like going together, right? No, it's not. So this was deleted out of the people side. There used to be an Epstein, so I looked it up. They took it out somewhere after July 12, 2019 into, I think October was when the last one I've seen where it was taken off. So somewhere in that range that they've removed this, but here it is. Jeffrey Epstein, financier and science philanthropist. Let's read this, okay? You want to know who's behind a lot of different stuff? Take a look at this. Jeffrey Epstein is a financier and science philanthropist. He is president of the Jeffrey Epstein Foundation and currently serves as the chairman and chief executive officer of the Financial Trust Company. It's another great one to look at. But Epstein started his career at Bear Stearns with educational background in physics and mathematics. Epstein is the founder of the Program for Evolutionary Dynamics at Harvard University. Remember, that's through Novak. That's who I was talking about before, evolutionary biology and things like that. Established in 2003, the program studies the evolution of microsystems and microbiology with the use of mathematics. Under the direction of Martin Novak, the professor of biology and mathematics at Harvard University, the program has developed critical mathematical models of how viruses and cancer cells evolve. Is any of this stuff ringing the bell here for you guys? Do you see what's behind a lot of stuff here now? This is starting to click in. Mr. Epstein founded the Jeffrey Epstein 6th Foundation in 2000. Perfect timing. It was around the same time that they started the Edge concerts. When you go back to these, I think they show it's by year. And usually the Edge concerts, or sorry, the Edge dinners, they started in 2009. Or sorry, 1999. Sorry, guys. He's one of the largest supporters of individual scientists, including theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking and Nobel laureates Gerard Hooft, David Gross, and Frank Wilczek, another huge one. I think he's out of MIT. His foundation also plays an active role in supporting education across... Listen to this. Plays an active role in supporting education across the United States, as well as, quote-unquote, philanthropy in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where the foundation is based. More specifically, Little St. James, Pedo Island. This was the philanthropy. Epstein is actively involved in the Santa Fe Institute and the Theoretical Biology Initiative at the Institute for Advanced Study, the Quantum Gravity Program, and the University of Pennsylvania. He sat on the Mind, Brain, and Behavior Committee at Harvard. He is a former member of the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the New York Academy of Science, and a former Rockefeller University board member. And if you go further into this website, it'll even, like, they only remove this. There's still pictures of him on, like, the unarchived website, and they've been archived too. They don't hide it very well. They don't hide it very well at all. This guy was funding those billionaires. That billionaires dinner that you keep seeing in these places. See, the Edge billionaires dinner. At this point, Jeffrey Epstein joined the conversation, demanding to know whether weird quantum effects had played a significant role in the origins of life. Yeah, I think I could even see who funded the event. There you go. Take a trip on the nearby private island retreat of the science philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein, who funded the event. And you can keep seeing. Jeffrey Epstein, the donor of the prize, was not a judge. The computation science prize, just like the computational style thing that the Jesuit was speaking with Robert Maxwell. Just computation science. It's all linked in. These people are completely in with each other, and that includes people like Sam Harris, neuroscientist, philosopher, making sense. Remember Sam Harris? Right? They make it look like these people are fighting each other online, so it's left versus right. That's what they do. But really, they're with each other. Ariana Huffington with Sam Harris. Yeah, okay. This is how this works. This is how this works. So, we have showing here that Jeffrey Epstein, the connections through the Maxwell, and now it's quite clear that when you start looking at, let's go back over to the Santa Fe Institute, you have $1 million one here, and then there's also, if I were to look up right now, Templeton Institute. Santa Fe. There is more news. Oops, one sec. There's so much information that I had to give that it's hard to catch all of it. Templeton Foundation. So the Templeton, or when they say macroevolution winners, it's talking about a grant. The Templeton Foundation grant database is also here. Hold on, duplicate. There was another one that I was reading where they gave 3.5 million. Let's see. 3.5. Will I find if I do that? But yeah, you can find it for yourself. I know it's a little bit tough to find all this. Sorry, there's a lot of information that I went through here today. But you have the Templeton Foundation, which is very, very tied to Warren and the intersection of religion and science. And you have all these unity people like Rick Warren. And you also have John Piper that are connected with these types of people, the Calvinist side and the NAR side. And they're all connected with the Templeton Foundation. Another connection with that, the Templeton Foundation with Cato. Another one to look into. Cato's Institute Center of Global Liberty and Prosperity. I don't know if you've seen Cato around before. This is another really big one, the Cato Institute, and then you can see funding go into both right wing. It's like it's like a fake capitalism, trying to replace what capitalism is. They talk about the inclusive capitalism, going back to C. Peter Wagner, transfer of wealth. The Great Transfer of Wealth. He wrote a book on that as well. He's supposed to be a Christian pastor. Okay? That's the... they're all connected. And the deception is so great. You can view like certain angles of it, like Balliol College, and then how they moved over to Fuller. Fuller. And then through there, they had so many different types of heresies, like Rick Warren and C. Peter Wagner, Bill Johnson. All of these people came from these places. And you can see the straight up connection between these places, Balliol College, Jeffrey Epstein, the Maxwell connection, and then how they're using people like Sam Harris and Milo Yiannopoulos is another one that was, remember, like all of these pop right wingers, they're all from Epstein. They're all from Epstein money. How John Templeton Foundation was slinging around its money, it was able to make a ton of money by going through Epstein. That's my guess. We don't see the money trail just yet. I think we need to spend a lot more time on this, but notice they're all connected with that same spiral. Tornado twins, you have the Saddleback Church old ones, John Templeton, another one, Richard Dawkins. Just watch. Dawkins, what is it, Foundation? Is that what he's called? RichardDawkins.net. See, we got the 3 leaves or the 3 marks. And look, it's supposed to be DNA looking. So you assume the spiral, how it spirals around itself. If you were looking top down on that, what would you see? Something very much like the Templeton Foundation logo. Very much like it. And you will actually see people like Richard Dawkins, as well as Rick Warren, maybe like duke it out. Like these types of characters, like they are arguing with each other and they say that they are too religious or too woke and they won't work with each other. But you see that they're all connected. You see that they have connected with each other in every way possible, and they present to you a divided front when they are truly behind so much of this stuff. And it's all tied to Jesuit infiltrations of colleges and the like. So that is, yeah, Rick Warren is Saddleback, which once again, oh, you're just coming in, Camilla. Good to see you. So yeah, he's Saddleback Church, and we were just talking about, if you want to scroll back to the beginning of it, these people were also Saddleback Church, and they've just been arrested, or sorry, not they have just been. Reuben was arrested 3 or 4 years ago for pedophilia, in a like movie theater, like blatant. They went to a movie, and he was like basically molesting them. And no, not basically. Like, I don't mean to take it away. Just trying to, you know, keep it a little bit, you know, not so spicy on YouTube, right? Yeah, comes from Saddleback, and Rick Warren just resigned. So, but we see what I was going through there is that Rick Warren is also very tied to the Templeton Institute, which is tied with all of the people, like the Bill Gates, Edge, all of these people. They came from the same colleges as Robert Maxwell, and that Jesuits were clearly talking about infiltrating. And they support the right wing through the Templeton Institute, just like they support Black Lives Matter through Tides Foundation. It's like the Templeton Foundation is very much like the Tides Foundation. It's like the kind of right-wing version of it, but it's meant to distort right-wing thought. And that's why you had the flood of people like Sam Harris. Remember when they were calling Richard Dawkins alt-right? The whole alt-right thing, I think, was a complete psyop. Like, did people believe it? Like, were there real alt-right people that believe it? Yeah, I think there was a lot of people that believe the doctrine, but this was all set up from the beginning. Like the Milo Yiannopoulos, like there's a woman, oh boy, this is so much information, it's hard to be able to remember it all. Rachel Fulton Brown, Milo Yiannopoulos. Yeah, this is her. She's like she's from University of Chicago, which I don't know if you guys know too much about the University of Chicago and Chicago itself and how Jesuit it was. He or she was like basically mentoring him at one point. She's a associate professor of medieval history, and they were trying to sell her as like the based right winger or something like that to the crowd, and she never really picked up on anything because she comes off as really shilly. When you start listening to some of her stuff, see how she covers all this stuff. C.S. Lewis, that's always a turn to run. But you'll start seeing in most of her stuff, it is very, she's really hyper-focused on the Virgin Mary. She's definitely a Catholic. And you'll see them point to them a lot, like a lot of these types of figures, but then you'll see their connections in with like the same as like Marina Abramovich, and this, like all of these people are connected, and they are, you know, on every level, the religious, the scientific, the political, the what have you, doesn't matter. They are presenting a false, delusional division that one side is right and the other is wrong, when they are really part of it all. Imagine my shock when I see this video here and it has those two dashes going over each other, two broken spheres, a dark blue and a light blue. Like, imagine my shock that I saw that again. Like, these are just people, like I'm not looking for the it's everywhere with these people. It's like they're marked to say that they're part of the same thing, so they can safely create street theater to you online. We gotta start waking up from these people, because they're playing us like fiddles. They played me like a fiddle with Trump. It's interesting. You see, like, all these people that are on. Look at this. This is the owner of this group, John Brockman. Look, he takes his face out. This is freaking gross. But look who he was with. 1966, John Brockman with Andy Warhol and Bob Dylan. Listen, there's no nerd. This is no nobody. Whether or not, like, I mean, he looks like a loser. In his video, his pictures where he shows up, John Brockman, he looks soulless. He, like, I haven't seen many faces like this before. But in his pictures, he's just, like, soulless when he's found with other people. But yeah, again, look, selfish genes, the creation of memes, Richard Dawkins. You think that's a coincidence? Coincidence? No, it's not. It's because he was Jesuit trained. And Pepe was the name of a Jesuit black pope. You know, like, there's so much all together with each other. But if you go to the those, what do you call it, the events, one second. I know what I'll do. The webpage is not as functional as it should be, I think, because they've tried to cut so much stuff. And it doesn't link very well anymore. But it still has almost everything. Which is really funny because these are all like the tech nerds. This is specifically for tech people. To draw in tech people into these billionaires' dinners. Founders of Amazon, AOL, eBay, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, PayPal, SpaceX, Skype, Twitter. It is a remarkable gathering of outstanding minds, the people that are rewriting our global culture. And Epstein is the one that funds these. Or he was. I wonder, they stopped doing it after a while, maybe? I'm not sure. Let's see how long we can get into these before they stop happening. Yeah, they stopped doing them 2015. Interesting. Stopped doing them in 2015. So they didn't do it in 2016. Wasn't that around the same time as Pizzagate? And these people started getting caught for child abuse. Like many people. Katinka Matson and Richard Dawkins. Check this out. You might have seen it before. Epstein playing Richard Dawkins. Now, the thing about the Billionaires' Dinner is that it was also right before, it was associated specifically with the TED Talks. Okay? TED Talks started with these groups of people that were in the tech business and talking. Like, TED Talks is Epstein. That's the long and short of it. Here we go. That's John Brockman here. Here's Steven Pinker, another what was supposed to be a celebrity scientist. Jeff Bezos. That's Matinka Watson, if that's her name. Now I forget. I'm now talking about other things. And guess who else we have here? Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins. This guy here, even though this is a meme, this guy is Lawrence Krauss. That's his name. And there we have Matinka, or Katinka Matson. That's her name. And we have Steven Pinker, John Brockman, and Richard Dawkins flying to the TED conference in Monterey, California with science philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein. So now you know why all these people are famous, and they're fighting with each other online to pretend like they're enemies, but they're also all seen as alt-right. things like that. It's a show. It's a show. It's to get both sides hating each other. Yeah. It's exactly what it is. So, I want to say hello to those. I think that kind of rests my case of all of these ties. And they all seem to have spirals in their name, which is known as a pedophile symbol by the FBI. And there's pedophilia that reeks throughout so many of these different names as well. So yeah, that is the show for today. At least the content parts. Only took 2 hours, I know. So I just want to say hello to the people that were listening on the live chat. I don't even know how you say your name. AT&T for Santa Chaos. Yeah, I would say AT&T was certainly involved at one point. They got bought. Was it Amazon that bought them? Or are they still like their own like major company? TED Talks, Ted Turner. Well, I mean, check out Ted Turner as well. I didn't add him in with the discussion, but there's much to that as well. Maybe that'd be another episode. But what I'm saying is that the billionaires' dinner that everybody would love to go to for those TED conferences, they were associated with those. They were funded by Epstein. So since they started, you had Epstein funding the elbow rubbing events so that he can get in with all these people. And all these people include Richard Dawkins, Stephen Hawking. And listen, I'm pointing out the scientist side, right? Because I'm a right winger and I've seen all these fake acting scientists. I bet you like Bill Nye's like in with these people as well. But Neil deGrasse Tyson is another one. They're meant for you to oppose them. But when, at the end of the day, these are the same people like Sam Harris. Like, I would venture to say Jordan Peterson. He always talked about the intellectual dark web. This is the intellectual dark web. The Edge thing, they called themselves the smartest organization on earth or whatever. This is where they were networking. And it's crazy, some of these names that go through them. Let's just scroll through them as it happens. You have Paul Harris as well. Harvard. Look at some of the titles. Berkeley. I think Dawkins had a lot to do with Berkeley too, didn't he? Media Lab, MIT Media Lab. That was the one that Epstein funded. Cesar Hidalgo. UC Irvine. Where were these guys from? Well, it was Lake Forest. It's just outside of Irvine. See the connections here? Oh my goodness, there's so much information here, I'm now lost. Here we go. Developmental psychology. They love this evolutional biology and psychology. They were obsessed with it. And it seems like you have this virus out there now that has inserts into the spike proteins that apparently if you don't want those inserts into your head. Let's just put it that way. They can create themselves and a ticking time bomb can happen. That's what people are kind of looking into right now. Huffington, Hoover Dyson. Just look, all of these names, man. Look where they come from. Let's look at Q just for a laugh. I think they're behind Q as well, so here's how they would be able to be behind Q. Georgetown. Right? They try and separate themselves from Georgetown, but at the end of the day, all of these same groups, you'll find that you'll see so many of these people from Georgetown, I would say. When I say Georgetown, it's almost more like metonymical. Like, I'm just talking about Jesuit schools as a whole. That includes a whole bunch of different ones. Holy Cross, Fordham is another one. There's a whole bunch of other ones. But yeah, these are the groups that want to lord over you, and they say that they're against each other, but they're all like in together and they're rubbing elbows with each other. And a lot of these groups were all funded, like they were brought together by science philanthropist Epstein. There's Katinka again. Jeff Bezos is all over these things, man. These people can't help themselves to go to these. Look at this. Oh, poor Marissa. What's going on there, Marissa Meyer? Poor Marissa there. You can see he looks so heartless, too. Oh, goodness. Poor Julia. You got this guy who's, like, obsessed with his Google glasses. Nerd. He's going around this party, and he's like, I'm awesome, man. This explains everything. Ricardo Salinas. I think that's, like, the richest guy in, or Salinas, I should say. Isn't this the richest guy in Mexico, or one of them, along with Carlos Slim? like these are this is big tech. This is big tech. Epstein and this Brockman guy, and they all have their connections to the Templeton. Brockman has his connections to the Templeton Institute, many of them. Many connections. And we just see Bezos, Wojcicki, whatever. All of these names, Elon Musk. It's 2011. I mean, he was still a big deal at that point, but he was being boosted. Basically, what's going on. Lucy Page, I'm pretty sure it's Larry Page family. I think you see Larry Page as well in other places. Max Brockman, so I guess maybe their grandson or something like that. Bill Gates, Ariana Huffington, John Cusack, Dave Morin, Steve Case. There's Nathan again. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. This is how these people are controlled, right? So they start off with these groups, and Epstein and his losers, his pawns, they come in and they start either honeypotting or getting ready for a blackmail or just investing in, or to see if they can just flip them just like perfectly. I mean, they want them to look like nice guys, like the philanthropists that they want to show themselves as. But this is how you get roped in and start having corruption work against you, right? And a lot of these people look pretty dang suspect. Pretty dang suspect indeed. But all of these people who are supposed to be very, like, they're against each other, right? It's supposed to be left versus right and right versus evil, and, Brockman and Bill Gates. Who's Peter Gabriel? He's a musician, isn't he? Peter Gabriel? Who's this guy? Pretty sure it's a musician. Peter Gabriel. Yeah, he's a little bit before my time. Genesis. So you got like all the big names. Well, Genesis 2009. But Gates there with him. Man, these are the recruitment centers is what they are. Make sure that everybody's all on the same side, right? Look at this. He's wearing his pinstripe. He's this guy has definitely got to been on the Lolita Express a couple times, huh? John Brockman. Lolita Express. I should be careful with that, shouldn't I? Epstein Express. Did he show up? Oh, yeah. That's him right there. He's in with it. We just said that. I've always been so focused on Dawkins, I didn't realize that Brockman, he was the one standing over them all. This is so disgusting. Look at this. Oh my goodness. All of these disgusting people. Prince Andrew shows up I guess because of Epstein. There he is again, the billionaire's dinner. There they all are. Oh, it's so disgusting, these people. All right, let's get back to the chat. I just want to say hi to you guys. Blessings, greeting. Rick Warren is Saddleback Church. Yep, everything should be questionable. Indeed. Finding Freedom. What is up, Avidan? Richard Dawkins is finished. Yeah, he is. Well, I mean, they tried to like cast him off as an alt-righter. I think this is what they were. This is the plan. Because of the alt-right stuff, if he didn't go too deep into the alt-right, but just kind of like dog whistled or said something to sound like a dog whistle, it would make the alt-left cancel, or make alt-left cancel them, right? But they would only have, some coincidental stuff, you know what I mean? So they're just going off their emotions and stuff, but they can't really prove anything. So they can't really lynch him, But it's enough to just let him disappear. See what I mean? He goes off scot-free, really. Maybe he won't be as popular as he was before, but he's not, being killed for his Epstein connections. not saying that anybody should go and kill anybody. That's not what I mean. But if people found out what he was connected with, which I never hear about this stuff, then he would probably have much bigger problems than just being quote unquote canceled for a dog whistle. Dog whistle. Ted was created by Richard Salt Warman. I'd say if you start looking into these names as well. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that Epstein has created all of this stuff. I'm saying that Epstein's money, when you're looking into Epstein money, you have to see where not just his and his 10 different foundations are giving money, right? But it's his connections as well. When you start seeing them all go in the same different directions, right? That's when you can start seeing this is, I just say Epstein once again metonymically. It's this group that is corrupting every single thing in a dualistic fashion. One side you have the quote unquote emerging church with NAR and Word of Faith and Rick Warren and all that kind of stuff, right? You have that, and they're all looking to take over the 7 mountains of influence in the world, right? And then on the other side, you have the people that are talking about social justice, and they are trying to take over basically the exact same thing, government, media, yada, yada, what have you. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And they even pretend to fight each other with alt-left and alt-right and yada, but they're all from the same people. They're all from the same people. And you see the funding. If you go through this, I want to probably keep this as short as possible because this has covered a straight tie, straight from Saddleback Church through the Templeton Institute, and the Templeton Institute to Balliol College, and you have the same connections. Many people from Fuller's Seminary, same people, same years, and same theology being seen in Balliol as you see in Fuller, maybe a couple years later, might be a step behind it or whatnot, but you see the same infiltrations, and it's through Jesuits. It's very clear. It's very clear. The more I'm going to look into this more because I had to make that straight line. But the connection is there. The John Templeton Institute is like Tides Foundation of the right, kind of. It's still progressive. It's meant to be there to take people that were once right wing and give a watered down version of it. Where on the Tides Foundation with the Black Lives Matter and the Native protests and all this kind of stuff, it's meant to quote unquote empower these people or just drive them insane in a different way. Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson are actors. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that they are all controlled by these same people. Bachelor of Science and Mechanical Engineering. I mean, it's like a sketchy little place that everybody can argue on these details. But at the end of the day, what I want to really hammer home is that they are all controlled through these same grants and all these things. Who was Richard Dawkins? He was a scientist that went to Balliol College. Same as a bunch of these other guys like John Templeton and Richard Dawkins. He did a lot of stuff on he was the person that the left propped up as the hero atheist of the 2000s because he was propped up by these Epstein characters. Hope that answers the question. I'm going to take just a quick moment. If you guys have any questions on the stuff that I was mentioning, or if there's loose connections that you don't quite buy or anything like that, we can do a little bit more of a deep dive on it. I do want to kind of wrap this up kind of soon, but I will just take a quick bio break and we'll go from there. I'll start off with this.
I don't want to see him kissing goblins. ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. I don't want to see him kissing goblins, succubus with goblins, ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. I don't want to see him kissing goblins, ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. I don't want to see him kissing goblins, ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. Dump it. Charging into a goblin's nest of goblin vomit and slop and blood on it, especially up to his ankles. Trump charging into a goblin's nest of goblin vomit and slop. Goblin vomit and slop. I'm not expecting him to not get dirty slop. Kissing goblins, appreciating goblins, succubus with goblins, in bed with a goblin. Kissing goblins, appreciating goblins. I just want to catch him in bed with a goblin, in bed with a goblin, in bed with a goblin, in bed with a goblin. I just want to catch him in bed with a goblin, bed with a goblin, bed with a goblin, bed with a goblin.
Well, we have a panel of experts on this, so here we go. This term, absolutely ignored by the hoax community since Sandy Hook at the very least, proves why they always were, are, and always will be 100% irrelevant to solving the problem and actually finding truth. 30 seconds on the clock. Good luck. Okay, and first we go over to the regular sane person, and she says, what is plausible deniability? Great, you thought for yourself, you did not conform, and you did not go out on a limb with something that you had no clue about. Therefore, you seem to keep what you have there. Now, on to truth expert number one. We have NWO Illuminati Robbie Parker. That was the same answer we get every week, and you will lose it all for that. And then over to truth seeker number two. How dare you question me? And has risked all but $399, a small portion of what he had. And the winner today is a world-class shill, as has been called by the truth experts. And that is the prize, but at least she gets to keep her sanity. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so Richard Dawkins, if you're around in the 2000s, he was huge when it came to atheism and light right or left-wing ideology. Like before left-wing got out of control, like he was kind of like the first major atheist that people were following when there was a big atheist push back in the 2000s and maybe early 2010s. That has kind of gotten, it's so, atheism on YouTube is so cringy these days that most people don't follow it anymore. I think it was a forced push and just people got tired of it. They don't care so much anymore, you know? But back then it was really big, and one of the main like celebrity people that they would have out like debating theists that were like, you know, inserted, like Ken Hovind and all of these people. They're all from the same side, and what they were doing, they were pushed on to look like they were awesome debaters against theists, right? But we know now that he was in with Epstein. He was in with Epstein for a very, very long time, and he was probably pushed by Epstein money. So just astroturfed opposition to the quote-unquote religious right. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. One thing I want to just probably close off, we got a slow chat today. I want to go in through some Templeton Institute videos. Or it's not Institute, Foundation. I keep calling it Institute, I don't know why. But yeah, when and how children learn to forgive, why we think differently about science, religion. You just see, you know, all these half woke groups. The Templeton Prize also has that
It's 6-pointed star, but it has a spiral. It's made of 6 spirals, each 4 dashes. Interesting. But what really caught my eye was this. I don't know if he won it in 2020. To those who might be familiar with the Fauci scandal, Francis Collins, is basically, well, I think he's from a Jesuit school as well, but he's Fauci's right-hand man in like the emails. Dr. Francis Collins. He's out of the NIH. He works in the NIH. And he's like second in command. When you go through all the emails where like people are showing other treatments, like there was one for OPV, the polio vaccine. There was one for ivermectin. There was one for hydroxychloroquine. Like everybody's telling like all of these different treatments that were working. This guy was like the major screener. Like it got through him first before it went to Fauci for the most part. And it was just like him kind of, what do you call it? He was screening a lot of these emails for whether or not it went with the vaccine narrative and the narrative of the virus in general, right? And I noticed one in specific when I was reading them. When someone was pushing the polio vaccine as an effective and tested safe treatment, this doctor, after not receiving a response from Francis, would then send another email talking about it, wondering why he didn't get a response. And he said, well, it seems like you have all the time in the world for the Bill Gates of the world going around Africa when they suspiciously seem to have the same type of lab leaks that we possibly see in Wuhan right now. And then he got ripped from any email circles, that person who mentioned it, by Francis Collins. And then when he goes to push the information, like to give the information to relevant people, he was like, just ignore this person. I've removed him because he's just silly. As soon as he mentions Gates, it was really creepy. Anyways, this guy's my favorite person from the Fauci emails because he is just such a snake. I knew him well before I saw this, and it just blew my mind when I saw him on the Templeton Foundation when I looked up some videos of them on YouTube. It was just like this tiny little org, like it's a forced injected org that nobody cares about except for themselves, and they're just giving themselves medals. And if I'm not mistaken, Francis Collins is indeed a Jesuits trained. Early years, Staunton, Virginia, Shenandoah Valley University. He went to Yale. Carolina at Chapel Hill, which has a big Wuhan virus problem. They were involved in a lot of the studies through a guy named Ralph Barrick. I'm not sure if it is actually Jesuit Chapel Hill itself, but it's definitely infiltrated, and everybody else around them is from either Georgetown or Holy Cross or Fordham, all these kinds of different places. So yeah, this guy is as paused as it gets.
So far outside of my imaginings that I have to wonder, Heather, if the Templeton Prize Selection Committee made a mistake this year. But I am deeply and profoundly grateful.
So listen, I don't know about Ken Hovind ties yet. I want to look into it more, but it only makes sense to me that when you see this guy, Ken Hovind, apparently he was to be debating Neil deGrasse Tyson and like all of these celebrity scientists. There's a reason why he's chosen, and it's not because he's with us. Let's just put it that way, okay? So when you see all of these, the Richard Dawkins, when they were debating people, the Neil deGrasse Tysons, yeah, they're on that side and they're controlled. You better believe that there's other people on our side that's just as controlled, and you got to start finding them too, because this is how they work. They work in duality. But look at this. We got the... Look at this. Oh boy. This is as occultic as it gets. And right up at the top of the pyramid. You have this this star of light.
Chosen for this great honor, and I wish to express sincere thanks to Heather Templeton Dill and the John Templeton Foundation.
Boom.
My only regret about this spectacular evening is that we could.
This is Fauci, okay? This is like the NIH stuff, right? They're all controlled. The same people who's in with Rick Warren are in the the Templeton Foundation, just like the NIH. This dude is one of the head guys of the NIH.
Not all be here together in person. On the other hand, however, the virtual nature of this event has made it possible to invite many friends who might otherwise not have fit into this historic hall at the National Academy of Sciences. And so I am grateful for that.
So yeah, I don't want to waste too much time on this loser. I just wanted to show you how paused this organization is. Someone mentioned in chat, Finding Freedom says, Ken Ham is another creationist who debates atheists like Bill Nye. Listen, if this person was real, they're not going to get a chance to say anything to Bill Nye or expose any ties that Bill Nye would have, or expose Richard Dawkins to any ties that he would have. They would not get that chance to do that on some live debate. Okay? When you start seeing these people they just come out of nowhere, and apparently they're the heads on things. What's another good example? For Sandy Hook, Wolfgang Halbig, he just comes out of nowhere. What they do is meant to distract information from individual researchers finding their own stuff. And they try and tell you the summaries of things rather than looking into things for themselves. Because it can be hard work, and it makes people tired to research all this and have all these tabs open and all these different rabbit holes that you got to go down to verify things. It tires people. So it makes them want to go to find someone that will summarize it. And they understand that, and they're right there ready to summarize it for you. Francis Collins has been a director of the NIH since 2009. Absolutely. I mean, Obama years, right? Obama years. And you see, again, Obama with Rick Warren. And you see Rick Warren with Oprah. Look, since the first word that I say is Rick Warren, let's play a couple of videos on Rick Warren and his heresy. Rick Warren. Let's go Oprah. Right? You don't get a chance to talk to Oprah unless you are vetted and checked. Right? You don't get a chance to do that. You don't get a chance to go on CNN unless you're vetted and checked. I'm sorry to anybody who thinks that, when these people come on and own people and destroyed them on air. I'm sorry if you still believe that, because it's a distraction and it's a lie. Nobody makes it onto these things at all unless they're vetted and checked. If they look like they're there to destroy these people, it's usually because it's a popularity boost thing that they're trying to get more influence for this person. Remember Russell Brand going on Mika Brzezinski's thing, right? And he's flashing his 33s on his hands, but he just wrecks NBC. That's what it is. That's what it is. These people are vetted to distract you and make you think that they're there. But yeah, nobody makes it to Oprah unless they're well checked. Because imagine mentioning, if it was a Christian there, and you say, Oprah, what's your connection with John of God, that guy in Brazil? What's your connection with that? If he was any actual Christian, he would be mentioning that. But no, he makes it on here as, this is 8 years ago, it says, but there's many other times. 1 year ago is when he's on CNN. They're very connected. I think that Oprah Winfrey did a show about an interfaith show basically, and he was one of the speakers on it as well. This was recent. Rick Warren heresy. We'll go through a little bit more of his heresies just to clue up for today. I'm going to keep it try and keep it under 3 hours. Yeah, we'll start this.
We will first consider the pastor and author Rick Warren. He is the founder and senior pastor of Saddleback Church, an evangelical megachurch located in Lake Forest, California, currently the 6th largest church in the United States. Warren has been invited to speak at national and international forums, including the United Nations, the World Economic Forum in Davos, the African Union, the
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I like the thing that you're mentioning in chat, Finding Freedom. For Flat Earth, there's a guy on YouTube called Red's Rhetoric who just pretends to expose the idiocy of Flat Earth, but never really actually calls Flat Earth a psyop. Red's Rhetoric debates Jeranism, and Mark Sargent has been doing it since 2015, right? It's all injected. Both sides are injected, right? So you have people who were meant to go in and oppose Flat Earth, and then you have people that just keep talking Flat Earth like there's actually something to it. They just keep saying it. Don't really hurt it. It's meant to like make you want to oppose it because it's such an affront to logic, in my opinion. No offense to anybody that fell for it. I just think it's such a waste of time, and it's an obvious waste of time. I don't think it proves anything either way. And yet for 6 years, for 6 years now, these same channels are all still here and just talking about Flat Earth. That's a pretty cushy job, man. If only I had no morals. It's a pretty cushy job.
Council on Foreign Relations, Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, TED, and Times Global Health Summit. He was named one of America's top 25 leaders by U.S. News and World Report. Warren was named by Time magazine as one of 15 world leaders who mattered most in 2004. He is the builder of the Purpose-Driven Network, a global alliance of pastors from 162 countries and hundreds of denominations who have been trained to be purpose-driven churches. Founder of Pastors.com, a bi-weekly newsletter that is sent to more than 100,000 pastors and ministry leaders. An author of The Purpose-Driven Life. According to a Barna survey, the book has also been most identified by American pastors and ministers as the most influential book on their lives and ministries.
When I wrote the book, The Purpose-Driven Life, and you asked about selfishness, the opening sentence of The Purpose-Driven Life is 4 words. It's not about you. That is the most counterculture statement you can make. And it became the best-selling book in English in world history.
Look what's behind him. Broken Blue Sphere, World Economic Forum, and the sphere or the arches, there's a thick and a thin. It's all just coincidence, right? It's all just coincidence that we just keep finding that one thing that seems to share the same 3 to 5 traits.
Next to the Bible, it's the best-selling book, and it's the most translated. It's the most translated book next to the Bible, over 100 languages.
As a philanthropist, Rick Warren is measurably improving people's lives around the world through his peace plan and other humanitarian works.
It will change the world.
He claims to be ushering in a new reformation in the church. But what is this new reform all about? Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life, and his Saddleback Church have profound global influence. Saddleback has recently launched campuses in 12 strategic gateway cities around the world for their proximity to the final 3,800 people groups that still do not have a church. These global campuses, while headed by pastors already linked to local culture, will feature live worship and video or satellite feed messages from Warren. Because of this global influence, his ministry deserves serious scrutiny, especially when he receives so much criticism for preaching a watered-down and superficial version of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
In his Purpose-Driven Life book, I just simply compared.
You'll see that tree of life, see? You'll see that in the occult. You might even see it around here from time to time.
What Rick Warren
not on my channel, of course.
is teaching against the Scripture, line by line, precept by precept.
My major concern with that book is that it is the way it omits the gospel.
He has an agenda to teach, and often if that agenda can't actually be found in the Bible, he'll go to a paraphrase such as the Message, and he'll find something in the Message or another paraphrase that says something similar to what he wants to teach.
I mean, obviously, as you read the book, he uses dozens of different Bible translations, and he'll skip from version to version based on what sort of spin he wants to put on the text.
He chooses what fits his program, and as a result, you don't get convicted when you're listening to Rick Warren.
In his book, The Purpose-Driven Life, on page...
And that's a really big point, too. You don't get convicted when you listen to Rick Warren. You don't get convicted when you listen to Mario, the Vigilant Christian. You don't get convicted. That's the big thing with these people. They can't look at sin because they're such sinful distortions of the truth that if people did start looking at that stuff and not just raise their hand and chant and all that stuff, if they started looking into it, they'd see that the organization is very corrupt. So that's why they don't talk about sin, because there's so much within it that they want to make it look like trying to expose the sin is a sin in and of itself. You're the enemy trying to divide people. That's what they're trying to say, right?
Page 58. Warren essentially describes the gospel message as believe and receive. He writes, Right now, God is inviting you to live for His glory by fulfilling the purposes He made for you. Real life begins by committing yourself completely to Jesus Christ. If you are not sure you have done this, all you have to do is believe and receive. Wherever you are reading this, I invite you to bow your head and quietly whisper the prayer that will change your eternity. Jesus, I believe in you and receive you. Go ahead. If you sincerely meant that prayer, congratulations. Welcome to the family of God.
No mention of sin. No mention that you are, your dirty rags, everything that you do.
Notice in Rick Warren's version of the gospel presented in The Purpose-Driven Life, there is no mention of repentance from sin. Without repentance, there is no forgiveness. The gospel message presented in the Bible clearly requires repentance from sin and faith in Christ as inseparable for a person's salvation. While Warren defines repentance as a mental shift and to change your mind, repentance is most importantly turning from sin itself and turning to God. Jesus did not come to save people in their sins, but to save them from their sins. He did not come in order that you might continue in sin and escape the penalty, but so that you would be saved from the sins themselves.
Rick Warren is very dangerous, and here's the reason why. The guy is actually a genius, but he's using his genius in a way that harms churches. We meant to meet Rick Warren in person because he wanted to meet his critics and find out why in the world we're against him. So I think the idea was, well, let's bring some of our critics out here, and once they meet me, they'll decide I'm okay. But what I did was I pleaded with him to start preaching the gospel. And I said, let me explain what I mean by the gospel. Then I preached the gospel to him, the person of Christ, the person and work of Jesus Christ. And of course it fell on deaf ears.
Rick Warren spoke at TED. I mean, here he is with an audience of...
Right? Spoke at TED.
Very influential people with an opportunity to say anything he wanted to say. And that would be the opportunity really to give the gospel. And he didn't do it. He gave them a message of works, really. He said, God likes it when you be you. You know, you're wired to do a certain thing and you need to find out, look at your shape and do it.
In the book, I talk about how you're wired to do certain things. You're shaped with little acrostics: spiritual gifts, heart, ability, personality, and experiences. These things shape you. And if you want
So totally about your own identity and nothing to do with Jesus.
to know what you ought to be doing with your life, you need to look at your shape. What am I wired to do? Why would God wire you to do something and then not have you do it? If you're wired to be an anthropologist, you be an anthropologist. If you're wired to be an underseas explorer, you be an underseas explorer. If you're wired to make deals, you make deals. If you're wired to paint, you paint. Did you know that God smiles when you be you? And when you write a book that the first sentence of the book is, it's not about you, then when all of a sudden it becomes the best-selling book in history, you got to figure, well, I guess it's not about me. And that's kind of a no-brainer. So what is it for?
Yeah, he starts his book out, of course, it's not about you. But if that sentence weren't there and you read the book, you'd think it is about you, you know. And when he gave that talk to the TED audience, it was about him. It was all about him and what he and his wife did with his money.
Yeah, it was also interesting, the things that he mentioned, like the artwork, the investing, things like that. A lot of these are now under investigation for things like human trafficking. And it's very interesting that he's also in the same kind of places as Bill Gates is with his quote-unquote humanitarian efforts, as has already been mentioned in this video. But yeah, really interesting how they all seem, him and Oprah and Bill Gates, they all seem to show up in the same places and talk about the same things.
So we gave it all back, and then we set up 3 foundations working on some of the major problems of the world: illiteracy, poverty, pandemic diseases, particularly HIV, AIDS.
Really? Because that's also what they talk about, the insertions into the spike proteins of COVID-19, is that it almost looks like it was an insertion of what is on the AIDS virus as well. And when you look at the studies from out of places like University of North Carolina, like we were just looking at before, as well as studies at the University of Washington and the University of Pennsylvania, I think Harvard also had some studies as well, but you go into then the Wuhan virus, the Wuhan Institute of Viruses or Virology. Xizhang Li, she did work at UC Davis, which also has a lot of these same kind of things, and they were working with AIDS viruses and coronaviruses.
And set up these 3 foundations and put the money into that. The last thing we did is we became what I call reverse tithers.
Practically everything he said came across as a boast. You know, you listen to that lecture And he had about 20 minutes there to say anything he wanted, and I would guess probably 18 and a half of the 20 minutes were all about him. He really didn't mention Christ a single time in that TED lecture. He mentioned the name of Jesus because he described an incident where a woman came and showed him a piece of paper and said she could see the face of Jesus in it, but he basically brushed her off and rolled his eyes and said, you know, what a kook.
A lady came up to me the other day and she had a white piece of paper. Michael, you like this one? And she said, what do you see in it? And I looked in and I said, well, I don't see anything. And she goes, well, I see Jesus, and started crying and left. I'm going, okay, you know, fine. Good for you.
He had nothing whatsoever to say about Jesus. Apparently, he doesn't even see Jesus in Scripture because that's not what he talks about when he gets the opportunity.
So the good life is not about looking good, feeling good, or having the goods. It's about being good and doing good. The bottom line is God gets pleasure watching you be you. Why? He made you. And
oh, just awful theology. Awful theology. As someone mentioned in chat, it's scripture that God cannot hear the lost prayer. Yeah. He does not delight in you being you. We have lost our way on this earth. And if you're not focusing on your sins, it's a big problem. You can't just you be you. It's a really easy message to push as a church that is, you know, under prosecution. And it may seem like the right thing to do to open up your ways to the world. But this is the exact same message that you get from the left, right? Isn't it interesting how all of these people who, like, they're supposed to be the religious right, they all have the same talks about the same left-wing garbage. It's because they all work together.
when you do what you were made to do, he goes, that's my boy. That's my girl. You're using the talent and ability that I gave you. So my advice to you is look at what's in your hand, your identity, your influence, your income, and say, it's not about me. It's about making the world a better place. Thank you.
I look at that and I think this sort of epitomizes the whole seeker-sensitive approach, and you know, not just to pick on Rick Warren, but he is the most visible and influential of the seeker-sensitive guys. And as I listen to him and watch him in these opportunities when he's on national TV or in a forum like TED or whatever, does he preach the gospel? And the answer is consistently, no, he doesn't. He didn't put it in his book. He doesn't preach it when he has the microphone. And that troubles me. It shows that there's something seriously wrong with his perception of what the purpose of the church and his purpose as a minister really is.
What it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ is to say, I give as much of myself as I understand, to as much of Jesus Christ as I understand at that moment. And then you keep growing in it.
In his book, The Purpose-Driven Life, and in his video series, 40 Days of Purpose, he does...
See, this is the same kind of thing with Mario and all these people. Like, they think as soon as they get saved, they have to go out and convince others that what they believe is the same. And don't get me wrong, we are supposed to be evangelists, right? We are supposed to preach the gospel onto the word. But you have these people within these groups, within the emerging church and word of faith, especially with the NAR. The last video I did shows actual mind control going on in these places. Like, it's almost like the Borg in a way, because it infects you, and within the being born again 1 month, and then maybe 2 months later you've gone through some course and now you're ready to teach people to do the same thing. You were basically mind control just to proselytize as much as possible. You didn't learn the meat, right? You needed the time to grow, and instead what you're doing is you're going out and selling your in many cases false theology out to people, and you don't even know who God is, the person that you're supposed to be, or the God that you're supposed to be praising his name. You don't even know who it is yet, you know, like, let alone be ready to teach. And this is what happened, you know, best case scenario, this is what happened with Mario. This is what happens with so many people in these NAR churches. If you look into YWAM, it's a particularly bad one. Like, they have this course for fellowship and ministry, and they go through it, and it's basically mind control, and you get out of it, you can barely live in the real world anymore, but you work with them instead. And then your work means you're just spreading what you just went through to everybody else, even though you haven't even been born again for a year, if you ever were, if you ever knew what it meant. You know, so it's like the Borg in that way. It just infects and it incorporates you into their own, and you don't think for yourself. You don't have the time to think for yourself. You're just injected with all these feelings. And this is what we're seeing take over the church. Instead of sound theology, we have people that are obsessed with trying to spread the word when they don't even understand the word at which they're spreading. And they're spreading heresy and division.
Does not give a clear gospel. As a matter of fact, the gospel that he does give is very weak and very watered down. And this is alarming to people, many of them who went through the series, who do not know Jesus Christ and don't know the true gospel. For example, in his video series, I want to read from this, the 40 Days of Purpose. Warren leads his listeners in a prayer.
Do you have a relationship with Jesus Christ? If you're not sure of this, maybe you've gone to church all your life, maybe you've never been in church. It doesn't matter. I'd like the privilege of leading you in a prayer to settle this issue, that you are connected to Christ. So let's bow our heads together. I'm going to pray a prayer, and you can follow it silently in your mind. Let's pray.
Now, it needs to be kept in mind that at this point, Warren has talked virtually nothing about the cross, about the crucifixion, about the fact that we're sinners, about our need for salvation, about what Jesus did for us. Virtually nothing that a person who has very little knowledge of the Bible should know before they commit their life to Jesus Christ. And so, but at the end of the first session in his video series, he asks the people to pray this prayer. At the end of that series, he says, I want you to repeat after me. Dear God, I want to know your purpose for my life.
Dear God, I want to know your purpose for my life. I don't want to waste the rest of my life on wrong things. Today I want to take the first step in preparing for eternity by getting to know you. Jesus Christ, I don't understand it all, but as much as I know how, I want to open up my life to you. I ask you to come into my life and make yourself real to me. And use this series in my life to help me know what you made me for. Thank you. Amen. Now, if you just prayed that prayer for the very first time, I want to congratulate you. You've just become a part of the family of God.
That is deeply disturbing to me because, again, he mentions nothing here about our need for a Savior, the fact that we're sinners, the fact that we're under the wrath and judgment of God, the fact that Christ died in our place, the need for repentance, the need for faith. None of these things and many others were mentioned prior to this prayer. And yet the prayer is about finding your purpose in life. Lord, I want to find my purpose in life, and I want you to help me find my purpose in life. And if you'll help me find my purpose in life, then that's great. And then he says, after you prayed such a prayer, then congratulations, you're now become part of the family of God. Well, most likely, such people that would pray such a prayer have no concept of why Christ died for their sins, why they need a Savior, anything along that line. And therefore, they're praying a prayer to find purpose. They're not praying a prayer to find forgiveness from sin and to be made right with a holy God. And therefore, I think this series definitely underplays the gospel. It makes it very weak. It makes it very easy to believe without even understanding our need for salvation. And therefore, it is very alarming and very concerning that people could take this video series, read the book, pray a little prayer, and think they're saved, when in reality, they don't know the first thing about why Jesus Christ died for them.
I've seen Rick Warren in several venues where you desperately want someone who's going to preach the gospel. The TED Talk was one. He's been on Larry King and other network news programs where he's been questioned and interviewed about things like the meaning of life and what is our purpose as a human race. Great doorways through which you could drive a truckload of gospel truth, but I've never seen him actually take the bait. I've never actually seen him make the most of those opportunities and preach the gospel. The closest he came was when he told Alan Combs to give Jesus a 30-day money-back trial.
But what does it say for all those people who do not accept Christ as their personal Savior? I'm saying that this is the perfect time to open their life to give it a chance. I'd say give them a 60-day trial.
Even that
The reason why, like they seem a little bit perplexed, but the information that I've just shown you in this, all glory goes to God, of course. Like this, just the stuff that He's led me to find, of course. Just want to make that clear. But the stuff in this stream shows very clearly His power of purpose. I think that's even the purpose-driven church. That was the basis of this theology. I have it over on the left-hand screen. Like, this was propped up by the John Templeton Institute or John Templeton Foundation, and we see where they get their roots from. Belial, Elihu in the Yale secret societies. We see where their roots are. They're wondering why he's not teaching that. I think they seem a little bit more confused because this is what it is. It's not, it was never meant to give you the gospel. It's meant to specifically water it down and push including a fake science. Like most of these scientists that you see, you know, that like they're all propped up. Like half of these guys are so mid-witted and like blinded by their egos. This is why you hear, like, because they're all going to these billionaire dinners funded by Epstein the day before the conference. You know what I mean? They're all like pumped up for being like the special people, you know, before they go and do their talks. But we know why now. So hopefully I did explain the information. There's a lot to do and a lot to take in. Hopefully I recommend just going through the stuff and researching for yourself, because these ties, these links they're obvious. This is what we got, like Ghislaine Maxwell. And these meetings with tech, there's a reason why Maxwell Hill on Reddit. One second. Maxwell Hill, Reddit. You guys should look into this. Ghislaine Maxwell is Reddit's infamous Maxwell Hill. This is huge. You can see that she has support, like extra powers than what most mods have. But she was also the biggest, or this was also the biggest Reddit account. And it stopped posting only at 2 times. The first time coincided with the death of Ghislaine Maxwell's mother. And it was for, I think, a week. The second time, it stopped posting when Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. It has not posted anything since. Okay? So just to let you know, I don't know if you've seen much about this. This is what they did. They met with all the tech people through the billionaires dinner, right? And they got them all pumped up on themselves. Remember, over all these people, right? See, look, Bezos, right? I bet you if I looked hard enough, I could find Ellen Pao, there's Larry Page, right? This is what they were doing. They were creating these forums, and they were rubbing elbows with all of these people, and then eventually they would either blackmail them or they would bribe them. This is what was happening. Simon Baron Cohen. Look at all these people, man. Best buds. So then Epstein would meet one of them behind closed doors. We'd have Ghislaine Maxwell maybe do a startup that became Reddit. Maybe behind the creation of it. And when you look this up, they're kind of like saying maybe it's her. No, it's down to 2 things, okay? This is not a coincidence. Either somebody wants you to think that this is Ghislaine Maxwell's account, and they had this planned since the creation of Maxwell Hill on Reddit, or this is Ghislaine Maxwell, and it stopped posting after being the biggest poster on Reddit, the highest karma, and it was mods of everything. And it said it was a Malaysian guy. She speaks some Malay, and this account didn't know the biggest, like the most known dish of Malaysia. I don't know what the dish is called, but there was a point in time in discussion where that account said they didn't know what it was, and it was the most popular dish in Malaysia after like reading like people talk about it. So it might speak Malay, but it's not who they claim to be, most likely. That was the only claim against it not being her. And of course she's not going to say that she's like, you know, any like revealing details. And people mention the Maxwell Hill, it would be too obvious. Well, no, I don't think so. I think like she's obviously like messed in the head. So she probably wants like her name to be known, but she can't tell it to you completely, but she's still got to stick stuff in there, right? So that name is known. And she was pushing out all progressive stuff, environmentalism, you know, tech stuff. There was stuff on pedophilia as well, like defending pedophiles and stuff. Yeah. So this is how these things operate, right? And I wonder how much of the big tech has been created by these people networking with each other. This is pretty crazy stuff, man. Finding Freedom says, do you know Jay Dyer? He's pretty much the Eastern Orthodox version of the Vigilant Christian. He claims to expose the Satanism in Hollywood and the media, and also has debates with atheists, Muslims, other Christian denominations, and unbelievers. So just like another division channel then, I guess. Let's take a look. Is this him? 777. Okay. The old wave music. Yeah, this looks pretty set up to me, if you ask me. What's up with the ostrich? A lot of the as above, so below. Well, I'm pretty sure literally the thumbnail of this video is the triangle at a, what do you call it? An Arise concert. It's not a worship session, it's a concert. So, okay, I'll give him a little bit, but yeah, we still got this same kind of clickbaity reaction face. Huh. Well, there we go. See? This is how it works. See? We get these debates, these propped up debates, and these are the people that prop them up. So this guy, my guess, he's a social influencer, right? So you get enough people. Nobody cares about Richard Dawkins. I don't know who this guy is, to be honest. Let's take a quick look. Talbot School of Theology and professor at theology at Houston Baptist. The Kalam cosmological argument for the existence of God. Wheaton College, Trinity Evangel Divinity. Birmingham and Munich. Now that one's an interesting one. Do you guys know much about Munich? It's an interesting one. Kalam cosmological argument. What? This sounds very... What happens now if I tag Templeton Foundation? What happens? Okay, so William Lane Craig delivers the 2004 Templeton Foundation. Reasonable Faith. I don't know who owns that one. Don't want to dig too much of a rabbit hole for myself at the end of this video. Yeah, we got another one, University of Colorado. Right, and Dawkins, Templeton Foundation, yeah, they're debating each other. And okay, so the Templeton Foundation then funds both these people and props up both these people, and then they have social influencers like this dude. What a cool picture. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be picking so much, but fair enough. I mean, like, basically showing all the same garbage, like the fash wave and all that stuff, and the fear and all that stuff, and then he's gonna be the mediator. The review of Richard Dawkins versus Lane Craig. I don't know. Let's see what he says. The next best debate. So, I mean, like, if he was calling them out, then I would have eaten my own words and said, oh, guys, I've definitely passed judgment, but it doesn't look like it here. Look, the next best debate to review we haven't covered yet includes that we haven't covered yet. I can't even type. Includes the infamous Richard Dawkins, who has been curiously underlooked in our series. Curiously underlooked. Like, just adding the mystique. Time to rectify that with this popular debate from a decade ago. Yeah, see, he's not going to... Social influencers love to teeter-totter on the borderline of shillery and trying to sound objective. And you just curiously overlook. No, you're shilling them right now, is what you're doing. You're trying to just spread awareness to these two shills that are funded by the same, funded and rubbing elbows with the same people in the same organizations, pretending to debate each other. And here you are, just basically putting light on these losers, wasting their time, or wasting everyone's time.
I mean, people are under the impression that the academic world is all of these, whoa, no, they're a bunch of fools. The wisdom of this age is foolishness. So what's...
Notice red. There's a red light and a blue light as well. He's wearing a yellow shirt. This is interesting.
What's one of the problems that I would critique about this idea that emergent order just sort of comes out of matter itself, right? It's not there's no universal power principle or absolute, no concrete absolute, nothing like that functions to be a reference point or a grounding for the particulars.
Yeah. Okay. So the problem I have with the Orthodox Church is that the reason why the schism occurred is that they just didn't want Rome to be the head apostle of all of them. They still believe in these apostles things where it has like an authority over the church, and they are the be all and the end all. At the end of the day, whether someone becomes Orthodox or becomes Catholic, it really makes no difference because they're under a centralized control of a couple people. And those people can be corrupted and blackmailed or bribed and all that kind of stuff. And when you call them apostles, that makes it harder for less discerning people to tell the difference between right and wrong. So it's the big problem that I have. So you guys created denominations. Christ established the visible and apostolic church. See, they're really focused on apostolic stuff. That's the main thing. As long as they say that, and Protestants created division and their own religion. It wasn't our own religion. We read the Bible. We were able to read the Bible. See? It doesn't really matter if you go into the Greek Orthodox. And yeah, like you said, like the person who brought this guy up, Jay Dyer, let's see. Someone mentioned that he, called out the satanic Illuminati, just like Vigilant Christian. Yeah, but he's not going to mention who's behind it, is it? He's not going to talk about the Jesuits. Where did the Jesuits go on their way to Jerusalem and Babylon and stuff like that? It's right next to Turkey, right? Right next to Greece, right next to Constantinople. Right? These guys, do you think that on their way to China, they didn't infiltrate the Greek Orthodox Church? Why wouldn't they? They were trying to bring everybody into the Catholic Church once more, and if you can't force them into it, you infiltrate them. They were the first diverging church from the Roman Catholicism. Was the Greek Orthodox. Of course they're going to be taken over. Of course they are. Not to mention the whole area. The whole area was beaten down by the Ottomans. Right? When the Jesuits formed, that was what, the 1500s. The Ottomans were, my goodness, I mean, they had most of the Balkans at that point, and they even went up as far as Hungary in the later years. Right? There was a big, the Byzantines got wrecked at that point, and they were probably poor in the places where Orthodox Christianity still survived, like in Circassia and Crimea, and in those areas. There was still a lot of Orthodox Christianity, and this is where it took over. They went there on their travels, and they took over those guys too. So it's still the thing with the Greek Orthodox Church as opposed to Protestantism is Protestantism reads to the Bible much more, whereas the Orthodox is just that they claim I give them props for telling Rome to go away. I'll give them that. But at the same day, they wanted the same authority. It was just that they didn't want Rome to have it all. They're still centralized, still very easy to corrupt and infiltrate. Yeah, village idiot Mario. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's brutal. I don't see any updates on him since. I know there was one little funny thing before I go. Sorry, just one sec. But yeah, as you can see, William Lane Craig, you know, and you got Richard Dawkins, Templeton Foundation, and these people are just wasting your time with crossovers, pretending that they're against each other. They're all paid by the same people, and none of them are all that smart. After seeing what I've read about, seeing what I've seen about Stephen Hawking, and how he was propped up and things like that, like, one must seriously ask themselves if they were just feeding words into him. Like, and I'm not trying to make fun of him. I'm saying that he's been so controlled throughout his life. It was like, was this even real? They were starting like this infiltration of science and religion in the 60s and 70s, right? I mean, Hawking starting what, in the 80s? Where was Jeffrey Epstein in the 80s? He was in Bear Stearns. And then he was in his own corporation where he was dealing with only billionaires, apparently. I want to finish up one with Stephen Casper, because listen, when I expose these fake Christianities, this is the same thing. It's people who haven't been trained, and then they go off and pretend that they need to spread the word of God when they don't even know what the word of God is. Of course we should spread the word of God, but when you don't know what it is, this is what we end up with. This was pretty interesting. Casper caught Mario doing a live stream for Faith Family, and this was actually recent, and it cut off on him. He must have imploded. We don't have the full video, but to me it looks like he was in the middle of a show, and then just like minutes later he shuts it down, and he couldn't get off the people that were flaming his chat. Like, he just couldn't stop focusing on it. It's quite interesting. Just watch how this works.
All right, let's just block a couple.
Okay, so another little bit of a context too. For those who are watching for Rick Warren and they don't know who Vigilant Christian Mario is, I do a lot of videos on him because he was big on YouTube at one point, and he is a, for lack of a better words, a cult leader, aspiring cult leader, and he keeps trying and trying and trying, and he's trying again right now after being exposed for a lot of bad stuff. So long story short, he had a huge channel that had over 500,000 subscribers at one point, and that that failed because of his problems with drugs and many other things, abuse, all that kind of stuff. So he eventually, even though he said they canceled and deleted his channel in 2018, it wasn't deleted. It was given or sold or something like that, transferred to a guy named Rich Pankowski, who basically does the same thing as the Vigilant Christian, creates all this fear of the enemy against us and all that kind of stuff, except he takes it kind of to a new level. And it's crazier sounding than, well, Mario also sounds pretty crazy, but this guy is just out to lunch. And to me, when I'm watching this, it looks like there is a connection. He's trying to block people who talks about Rich Pankowski, I think. You see these people mention it because he sold his the Vigilant Christian was sold to, or given over to, this guy, and they both seem like injected shills to me, just like the Rick Warrens, these people that have been, you know, raised either unwittingly or wittingly to decay biblically based Christianity. They're agents of that same thing, whether or not they know it or not. I think maybe they both know it. But anyways, he's trying to get like a new subscriber base back. He's down to just, you know, a few really loyal followers compared to the 500,000 that he had. And you see, he still can't handle criticism, and it's his downfall.
Trolls, just being ignorant. All right. So someone just made fun of me for, struggling with addiction, which I did 2 years ago. For those of you who don't know, I've just come out of, I'm coming out actually this month of a second, it's called Sober Living. It's second stage. I've completed 2 years of rehab and residential treatment, sober living, all that stuff. You want to follow along and get some encouragement on how to overcome these things, you can go to Recovery in Jesus. For those of you who aren't subscribed, you know, you can take this video, slide it down, click on the search.
He can't go an hour without shilling something of his
thing, put Recovery in Jesus. I have no shame. You can come and make fun of me for
I know you don't.
having struggled with cocaine, okay? Go ahead and do it. And I'll just keep blocking, and you know, you're gonna have to give an account one day for every careless word that you spoke, because God has forgiven me. And if you want to come here and you want to go ahead and bring up those old things, very typical of hateful people. I see it all the time, especially in the recovery community. Here's the thing, okay? No, I don't take it personal, you know?
Yeah, it's half and half. As I'm just going to be mentioning the chat, people in the chat, because there's a couple good comments here as well. This is Mario's problem. His anger and wrath overtakes him whenever he gets called out. It pretty much overshadows any faith in Christ he has, if that is, if he ever had any faith. And that's exactly what it is. Like, he keeps getting, it's an interesting story. Like, he just can't handle even like the smallest of channels criticizing him, and it overtakes him. And when they're in his chat, like, he can't handle it. You'll see it again. Like, this isn't the first time either, but this is actually a very recent time. Like, this was only like, this was less a month ago. He was trying to start up his super chats again. You can see maybe a fake donation that you see there. I don't know if it's fake or not, but it's discussing how they put titles such as "the world is collapsing." This is how they get people to follow them, create fear, and pretend they have a solution. Yep, that. And I think there's also, they want people to, like, the reason, it could very well be that he has been put there to foster that fear into people, right? Like that's actually his mission. You know what I mean? And if he makes something off that, that's how they keep doing it, right? But they need to keep hyping up this fear and garbage and all this kind of stuff in order to keep you feeling helpless, so that you will act irrationally. And then that's when you see all these NAR churches that are behind half of these protests. That's what's going on here. They're creating a controlled opposition out of people who have been groomed by videos to keep you in fear and in helplessness, states of helplessness, and to react the way that they want you to in their group, right? That's what I think could very well be going on.
It happens. Here's the one thing, and this brings up a really great topic, guys, okay? No matter how much effort you're going to put to try and really seek the Lord and be honest and true about trying to overcome things, there are people that do not want you to be successful.
This is, you could see how focused he is on people talking about him and quote unquote trolling. He's trying to cover up for it. It has nothing to do with him being a fraud. Really, he's trying so hard, and it's even because he's trying so hard that he has people attacking him. Like, it's just so, it's so obvious when you look at him. He looks desperate, more and more desperate by the day.
Absolutely not. They are like a pack of hyenas who are stalking. I've got them on this. They're probably listening. There's probably a couple of them that are waiting to make a video out of this because they stalk me. And did he fall yet? Did he fall? Can I use this? Ooh, yeah, he's falling. Yeah, look, everybody, Mario's falling. Ha ha, and they just devour you. What they're doing is showing you who they're from, right? You have those in your life, don't you? People that absolutely are just waiting. You know, they might, and the thing is, they try and put it out there like, hey, we're doing this because we care about you. It might be a family member, right? You've been struggling a long time, maybe.
Might be a family member? Oh. Wait a minute. Bear with me, folks. I don't have this pulled up, and I have like 20 things open. Remember, he's been with his nephew for a while? This was around June 21st. Do you remember in his faith family, I think? No, it was in Vigilant Mario. Just bear with me for 1 second. Bear with me.
Hey, Faith.
It's one where he says he's being attacked. Would have been in here. Sorry, just 1 sec. Here it is.
Hey, Faith family.
June 23rd. Bear with me.
It's Brother Mario. I pray you're having a wonderful day. I wanted to record a video to talk about...
Remember this thing? This made no sense. He was talking about like his adapter being pulled out of the wall, or he cut the cord to his adapter like accidentally, and he blamed it on God, or he blamed it on Satan. And there was like a whole, and it, like this whole video didn't make any sense, but he said something.
Spiritual attacks, specifically when you're trying to do something for the Lord. In the last day, I really came under spiritual attack, specifically because I did a video where I was having a debate with an atheist. If you haven't seen it, I'll go ahead and leave it pinned.
So he's probably just shilling his channel anyways here, but
up in the comments. But before I did this dialogue and debate, man, oh man, did the devil come after me. One of the things is we're going to recognize this because the Bible affirms in the book of Ephesians that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And so the enemy...
He always uses that for an excuse.
He can do really weird stuff.
I'm not yada-yadaing the Bible. It's just, I hate when he uses it because it's so...
When he attacks. So just to give you what happened... you know, I was on my way. I'm right now moving out of the home that I'm in into a new place, and
okay, he's moving, right? Wasn't he with his nephew?
Moving out of the home that I'm in into a new place, and
he was with his nephew for a couple months, right? Oh.
And put it out there like, hey, we're doing this because we care about you. People that absolutely are just waiting, you know, they might, and the thing is, they try and put it out there like, hey, we're doing this because we care about you. It might be a family member, right?
Is he talking about their family members or his family members?
You've been struggling a long time, maybe with alcohol, and yeah, man, you've done some really horrible things.
But he didn't want to say drugs because it ties it to him.
This person has built a narrative with your friends and your family, and all they want to do is convince everyone that, yeah, you know what? No, they're not going to be successful. And they're just waiting for you to slip. They don't actually care about you, okay? They don't. They want you to fall, okay?
So this is around the same time as he's moving. And he's talking about people's family members. And talking trolls online. How does this all... Okay, you know what? This is a rabbit hole that I can't prove, but that's a little bit sketchy to me. You know what I'm talking about here? These dates are not... They're very close to each other. Because I don't know how much I can get on Instagram on this. I've tried it before on another stream. Okay. Yeah, see, I can't open this. I don't know what I think here his cousin is with him, or his nephew, and it's this little kid. And there used to be tons of it. Yeah, see, kiddo. Okay, I can't go any further without it. But see, all back then, but before, if you just scroll back, I can't go back up now, I don't think. Let's see if I refresh. Okay, right, and he's there now, but all of these things except for this, I don't know when this was done, but he's in the process of moving. I sure hope nothing. That's all I'm gonna say. Because I don't know why he would be mentioning family members here. Like, are these family members actually, like, does he think that their family members, the people listening in, are going to tell him about how bad he is? Or is he talking about his own? I don't know. I do have an Instagram account, and it's hard. I can't log into it from this browser. It's something I overlooked. It's really, yeah, it's weird because it's connected through a different account, which is now like my Facebook got deactivated because I said something looks false about the Tiffany Dover debunking. And when I said that, I got kicked off YouTube. But it's tied to my Instagram account, and I can't seem to log in from this other one. So I'm sorry about that. I can't go through the other one at this moment because if I do, I think my computer will crash. There's a lot of stuff open, but
and they will pounce.
You can go and look for yourself. Like, I don't know what date that was. I hope everything is nothing
on
happened.
it like a wild dog, and they are disgusting. They're trying to build themselves up through your downfall, and it's disgusting. And God will deal with them. So what do?
It's awesome how it's awesome how it's always about God's love and stuff until it's people talking about him, and then God will deal with them. You know what I mean? Like, they always pretend that they're not works-based. They're not like Pharisees, right? But the pharisaical action is when they speak, and if you speak against them, then you are against them and you are against God, clearly, because they are just so connected with God, right? Because there's always peace and love until someone criticizes them.
Love them, we forgive them, we pray that God would have mercy on them, that God would convict them and show them what they're actually doing and how absolutely disgusting that is. And that's it. What else can you do, you know? So, I have no shame, guys. Yeah, struggled with addiction. I struggled with sexual immorality. Yeah. You want to come here 2 years later after I've done so much work in myself, so much work, and you want to...
I am Ozymandias. Look upon my works.
Still bring those things up? That's on you. That's on you. That's like some serious evil. But that's okay. I expect it. Satan's got to be Satan. He's not just going to let me get recovered and allow God to completely, gently, spiritually restore me, heal me, and set me free without coming along with those people to try and put out an idea in other people's head that it's not legit.
I love this guy in the chat. I'm sorry to keep cutting it off, but I love this guy in the chat that keeps writing, Rich Penkoski is a hell-bound sinner. Like, I know it seems like off topic, but it's true. This Rich Penkoski is the guy who has Mario's old channel right now. If you go look up youtube.com/user/Vigilant Christian, you're going to find his channel, Warrior for Christ, or Warriors for Christ. And it's him, Rich Penkoski or whatever. And yeah, he's taken over that channel. Someone mentioned that he was forced because he just couldn't get past himself. Mario couldn't get past himself. Someone has asserted that what happened really was that Mario's alleged handlers forced Mario to give up that channel and give it to somebody who could be more effective in carrying out an operation of instilled fear. Penkoski was a bad choice, but I guess he fools enough people more than Mario these days.
Oh, it won't last. Just wait. You'll see. They'll fall one day. And they're just sitting there waiting. Oh, I hope. I hope. And there's another one. I love you, Kabuki. God bless you. You know, anyways, I'm not even going to pay more attention. God bless you guys. I hope that you come to a stronger place of relationship with yourself in the Lord. All right, guys, so, you know, I just wanted to take an opportunity here to jump on with you guys today, let you know about these kind of live shows that we're going to be doing.
So you can't have these make
Epic,
mods?
you are now a moderator. All right.
This is not even a month ago.
So I'm gonna add a couple moderators, just so whatever. Okay.
David has not changed his ways.
Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. I'll jump on occasion. Okay. Yeah, man.
Just look at the face. Just watch it again. He sees the trolling. He never stopped it. The mods are not doing their jobs. He can't scream at the mods. He can only show the sigh of disappointment that he can't do anything about it.
Yeah, man.
He can't handle it. He just can't. He's completely derailed.
Okay, so if some people are asking to be moderators, if I don't really know you, like Epic, I know brother's been supporting me and loving me for a long time. I trust him. I could possibly put a moderator who's actually one of these people. They are after me like next level. Satan does not.
He was the person who recorded this was a couple, I don't know how long exactly behind it was, but it wasn't. He was almost finished, like almost caught up to the video, and it cut off just abruptly like that. So I guess you could compare his reactions to the chat and the chat to see where it was in minutes, maybe, if it was close enough. But it looked like something was abruptly ceased. He was completely derailed at that point. He couldn't think of anything but modding and just controlling the situation, essentially. And he was just completely overwhelmed. And apparently he just keeps all of his videos removed, all his live streams removed. But I don't know if he's done one since. If someone can correct me on that, I'd like to know. Finding Freedom says, have you seen his videos called The Vigilant Pharisee? Yeah, I don't even play them because they annoy me so much because of how I think it's quite blasphemes, I think. That is another example of him projecting his own shortcomings. Yeah, he's also like, he's casting off anybody who criticizes him as like Pharisees, when he's the perfect example of what a Pharisee was. It was someone that like claimed the highest authority over the people at the time. Remember when he says he's the most Holy Spirit filled person? And I keep driving home the point that all of these emerging churches, they try and redefine what the Holy Spirit is and keep the power to define it for themselves. And this is exactly what he does, right? Again, the more I look, the more I think that Mario was either implanted purposefully and he knew it, or he is so MK'd. Because now I'm looking through YWAM and their brainwashing courses, basically, is what they are. And it's a mild MK Ultra, if you ask me. And if there's sexual problems in these places, then you could have the real deal. And I think Mario could be one of those people. I'm not counting it out. I'm not going to say it outright that he is, because I don't have that proof, but I've seen enough. I've seen enough butterflies showing up around his stuff and occult symbolism everywhere when he's the one calling it out all the time, and then he's sending astrology stuff, not just like the horoscopes that, like, and I'm not saying you should go and read horoscopes, okay? I need to be a little bit more clear on this. I think that even the basic stuff is evil, but he's not even spreading just the basic stuff. He's spreading the charts and stuff like that, things like where he actually believes it can show you things, right? And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it's not from God. It's not from God. Certainly not from God. So that's definitely something important. Remember, in any case, he's an actor. He is pretending to be, an authority for his own benefit, but is someone else behind him? I'm not sure. But it wouldn't be uncharacteristic of people that have come out of this wave of the emerging church, that there are implanted people that convince others that they need to create their own platforms and take over media. All right, I think we'll clue this up. I'm going to play one last video as an outro and just see if who's in chat. Say hello to everybody. I want to thank you guys for coming. I'm trying to keep it short because there was a lot of information here and I want as many people to get it as possible. So with that, I think we'll finish off with another. I would like to actually show something on YWAM. Okay. Oh, actually, sorry, this one's a bit too long. This lady
Hello, everybody.
also
I
does
do
it
not
pretty
even
well.
know how to start this video. I don't know how to jump into it. I don't really know how this is gonna go. Yeah. So bear with me. I might be scatterbrained. I'm gonna try to do things in somewhat of a organized fashion, I guess. Very first off, I just want to say that I'm sorry if you can hear cars driving by. You're like sitting right in my window basically, and my window's open. Just ignore that. Next, I want to make it very clear what my purpose in doing this video is. My purpose is to share my experience with YWAM, also known as Youth with a Mission. It's not to bash the organization, it's not to bash my base, it's not to bash any of the leadership at my base. It's also not to get any sympathy. It's just simply to share my story, talk about the hard things that people don't want to talk about. I'm also sharing it because before I did YWAM, searched extensively for videos. There's a lot of things that you can like read on the internet about this, but quite frankly, before my DTS, I tried to look up videos and there wasn't anything like this. Anyway, yeah, again, also I'm sharing my story.
DTS she refers to is just, it's their cult acronym for like discipleship training or something.
Everybody's story is different, but I'm sharing my personal story, and I personally know and have heard of several others that do have stories similar to mine. That's that, there's my little disclaimers. I was born and raised in a Christian home. I've gone to the same church my entire life. I go to non-denominational church. I graduated from a private Christian school. My point is, I'm not new to Christianity. I'm not new to the Bible. I'm not a new believer, and I've had a relationship with Jesus for as long as I can remember. I did my DTS in September of 2019. I graduated high school in 2019, and then I knew that college was right for me, but I knew that it wasn't right then, and I've just really had a heart for missions, and I had heard about YWAM, and decided that it looked super, super cool. And just something that I would really be interested in. I can't remember if I applied right before graduation or right after. Doesn't really matter, but I applied around that time in 2019 and I got accepted right away. I went to a base in Washington State. I don't think it's really necessary to say exactly which base. It wasn't huge. Like if you're familiar in the YWAM community, you obviously know that like Kona and Newcastle, those are really big bases. It was nothing like that, but it also wasn't tiny. My DTS had like 40-ish students, I believe. So it was a good size. Let's just start this thing, I guess. So when I got to YWAM, I was super, super excited. I was just very much ready to meet some people that had similar values to mine. I was really excited to learn more about God and grow in my relationship with him. I was super, super stoked for outreach. Just all of it. I was really excited for all of it. The first 3 weeks of my DTS were good. Quickly, I started to get very close with the people in my DTS. That's what happens when you live in community like that, when you're literally doing every single thing together. That is what happens. You do get close with people very quickly. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the community. On the third week, we had a week that was called Father Heart of God Week, and all of the staff had been kind of like telling us that like, oh my gosh, everybody's gonna cry on this week. This is the most emotional week. This is the most crazy week. This is the most intense week. One morning during that week of lecture, we walked into the classroom and there was a circle of chairs sitting around the room, and basically what happened was it was like a confession circle. For 7.5 hours straight, we sat there. Everybody in the circle was sharing like their deepest, darkest things that either they had done or that had been done to them. I am not kidding when I say that it was 7.5 hours straight we sat there. But in the midst of that circle, our speaker told us that he was going to be hearing directly from God in regards to everybody's situation. Every single speaker that I'm going to be talking about is currently involved in YWAM. At least they were when I was in my DTS. Anyway, so this particular speaker, when people started sharing, he would hear from God in regards to their situation, and then he would speak for God to that person. and it was in front of the entire group. The thing that really troubled me with that was he was cussing a lot. It just bothered me because if a pastor did that from a pulpit, they would be completely reprimanded. Just getting in people's faces and screaming curse words, and supposedly that was from God. So that was my very first red flag. That week in our small group is, you know, where you are in a smaller setting. I had 2 leaders, and then I think there was like 6 students, 6 girls in my small group. We just would kind of talk about a lecture that week. And so she asked us how we thought this week went, and I was pretty honest, and I just straight up said, you know, the cussing really bothered me. I don't understand why that was necessary. Her response to me was, well, you shouldn't be bothered by that. Sometimes it's necessary for the intensity of a situation. And I was very unsettled by that response. Also want to address a couple things that happened my first week of DTS, but it wasn't until later that I kind of processed them and realized that they were not really okay. The very first week of our lectures, we had a week on hearing the voice of God or discerning the voice of God or something like that. It was one of those. She made it very clear that we should never use the word of God or the idea of God told me to manipulate. That first week we did an exercise and it was basically testing if we were hearing from God correctly, and they were basically testing us to see if we could properly hear from God. And what we did is we all stood in a circle and faced the outside of the circle, and they called one person to the middle without us knowing, and then we had to ask God for a word that described them. The amount of anxiety that gave me was a lot, because here you are in front of your entire school, first of all, and your leaders that you're looking up to, and it's your first week there, and you know, trying to find your place or whatever, and you have to describe this person from a word that God gives you. I felt very convicted of that. I felt like I was playing a game with God. Another example of this is several times throughout our DTS, we were told that you had a certain amount of time to hear from God on a specific topic. They would be like, you have 20 minutes to go pray and hear from God on this, or you have 5 minutes to hear from God on this. Literally one time, actually more than one time, we were told we had 30 seconds to hear from God about a specific person, and I just don't understand why you're putting God on a timetable like that. You know, God is outside of time. God does not work at our snap of a finger or at our demand, but there was an extreme amount of pressure that you had to hear something from the Lord, and if you didn't, you weren't connected to the Holy Spirit. You didn't have the ability to hear from God, things like that. And so eventually for me, it came to the point where I was pulling stuff out of my butt so I didn't look like a fool. And I was very confused, why am I not hearing from the Lord on this? I don't know if this is a thing at all bases or if this is just a thing at the base that I was at. Intercessory prayer always had to include visions or pictures from God. And sometimes people would just get up there and say I got a white rose and I have no idea what it means. That was just something that was really disturbing to me, was people would get these words from God, or these images from God, but then they had no idea what they meant. There was also times when we were told that we had to sit and get a picture or a vision from God, and that was also really bothersome to me. I will say this, I do believe that God most definitely 100% speaks through visions and pictures and dreams and all that sort of thing. However, I don't believe he speaks to everybody that way. I believe that he can speak in whichever way he chooses to whoever, whenever. And that kind of goes in line with the time thing. I don't think that it's right to put God on a timetable. I don't think it's right to tell God, you have to speak to me this way. In YWAM, you have a one-on-one, which you are assigned them your first week, and you have to meet with your one-on-one every week for a certain amount of time, and if you don't do that, then you cannot graduate DTS. And what you're supposed to do is basically you're supposed to tell them everything. My one-on-one, nothing against her personally, I think it's the way that YWAM has told their staff to act and told their staff to be is the reason that they're like this. My one-on-one had just done her DTS 1 year prior, so she was probably replicating what her one-on-one did for her. I would honestly try to avoid my meetings if I could, because I felt so tense and just questioned about every single thing I was doing, every single thing I was feeling, and God told her that I was supposed to come back for the secondary school. I was distraught because I didn't know how my family was going to react to that, and that I had to do it before I went home for Thanksgiving break, and she literally told me, you have to do it now before you get out of this bubble. A staff member was calling it a bubble, which scared me. I really felt that if I was supposed to go back for secondary school, God would tell me I wanted to go to college after YWAM. I did not want to continue down the path of Like, I did not want to stay in YWAM. That was never my intention. Along the same lines, I had another staff member tell me that God told him that I was to come back and do secondary school and that I was eventually supposed to staff. It finally got to the point where I was like really questioning, like, okay, is God just going to speak to others about my life? And you know, like when more than one person is telling you the same thing and that God told them, it starts to make you question, like, okay, well, maybe that really is God. But in my heart, I never felt like I was supposed to do that. And so it was like really conflicting. One week we had a like mini lecture thing. One of our own staff was doing it. She straight up told us that I have it quoted, I'm going to read it. She said, "Your leaders aren't leading because they're more mature or wiser. They're leading because they said yes to coming back to YWAM." I really felt like I was more spiritually mature than like 90% of the staff at my base. The people that were leading us most of them ranged from like 20 to 25. But they would also openly say, like, I've only been saved for a year or two. And they were my leaders. And then when she said that, I was like, well, no wonder I feel that way. I guess it's because it's true. That same little session thing, they also told us that, I also have this quoted, she said, "Talking with people about things is gossip and you're sinning against God. If you say that you're processing, it's gossiping." I remember so clearly after that was said, our entire DTS went like silent. And we all went back to our room and we literally like sat in our beds and like people weren't even talking because we were just told that like if we talked about things or like shared our feelings about things or processed things, then we were told that we were literally sinning against God. And so it put a huge amount of fear of talking and processing about things. They also would tell us quite often that our families and friends back home wouldn't understand what we were going through. Something else that was really drilled into your head was that if you weren't doing foreign missions, you were basically less than. Also during my DTS, we had a speaker that quite literally forced us to find ways that our parents had done us wrong. I was brought up in a great home with great parents, obviously not perfect, but I really did have a great childhood and upbringing. And I just did not understand the biblical purpose of trying to nitpick your parents and find ways that they have done you wrong. Obviously, yes, not everybody has the same home background as me, but like it really made me mad, like why we were doing that. And then the same speaker in front of the entire school told me that while my mom was pregnant with me, my parents rejected me, and that I have just dealt with rejection since I was in the womb. And although it wasn't true, that does create some sort of emotional thing in you, and it creates a lot of questions, you know, because supposedly these people are always hearing from the Lord and they're speaking directly what God's telling them. So all of these things started like piling up. I started to get really bad anxiety while I was there. I never dealt with anxiety before, but I developed it while I was there, and it got to the point where I would get physically sick. I cried myself to sleep almost every single night. I began to feel very, very trapped. And like I had no escape. We found out our outreach locations and I was super excited. I was assigned to go to Thailand. Thailand had been on my heart for like 5 years. And so I was super excited to go. Then I found out who my leaders were, and it was 2 leaders. One of them is 23, one of them is 21. One of them has been saved for like 1 year and one of them has been saved for a couple years. It just really scared me. Because quite frankly, I didn't trust one of them for other reasons that I'm not gonna go into. The other leader, I literally never had a conversation with her. Oh, one other thing that I forgot to add was during lecture phase, we went through 2 books of the Bible and like on our own, and we had to journal about them, and then we had to turn them into our small group leader, and we would get a grade that like was part of our graduation thing. And so that began in like insecurity in me of like, well, if I don't like interpret this well enough, then like 1, I have less knowledge of the Bible, 2, I might not graduate. One of the speakers also told me in front of the entire class that my parents were never proud of me growing up. This was one of the times where we were in a circle and he told us that he was hearing from God and that he was speaking on behalf of God, and he told me that, and I was like, and that created a lot of questioning in me also. So the last week of lecture phase, things went downhill super fast. We began to be told that we had to follow our leaders no matter what. They told us to blindly follow your leaders, even if you know that they're wrong. If you know in your heart that something's wrong, what in the world? Why would you do it? We also had a speaker tell us that we were not allowed to bring our Bible into class. We had a speaker tell us that he was going to be adding on to the Bible. All of the staff and everything and speakers were telling us that we couldn't tell our home churches or our families or our parents about what was going on, and I just knew that this was like wrong and going downhill very quickly. I'm not going to say that YWAM is a cult. I'm also not going to say that it isn't. However, things, I'll link a resource down below, but a huge thing of cults is when they say you cannot talk to people outside of this community, this circle. There was a point during one of the lectures where I just got super anxious. I basically was like about to have a panic attack, and so I left, I went to the bathroom, and I began praying. Long story short, I had a leader come in and tell me that I was not allowed to leave, that I had to sit in there, and that it was a completely inappropriate time to pray. And I was just baffled. I was like, I'm getting reprimanded by another Christian for praying. It just emphasized once again that them hearing from God and hearing the voice of God always trumps what the Holy Spirit is communicating to you. I got super scared at that point. I already felt unsafe emotionally, but at that point I felt very unsafe spiritually. I ended up going home 3 days before I was supposed to leave for Thailand. I had gone to my base leader more than once before I left, expressing some of my concerns, and all I got in return was excuses for the ways that things were being done, and just like, I'm sorry you feel that way. It made me feel like my emotions and my feelings and my discernment and everything was just wrong. One of my best friends also left. They called a meeting for the whole entire school, and they took she and I into a room with everybody, and they said Faith and so are not going to be going on outreach, and like that was it. That was that. And I was sitting there like sobbing my eyes out, and like nobody did anything, and it was honestly like the most embarrassing, humiliating thing that I've ever gone through, because I'm about to cry because I so badly wanted to go to Thailand. I wanted to go, but I knew that it was not right to go. I knew that I couldn't go under that kind of leadership, and I just felt so unsafe. Right after that, we had a meeting, and so my friend and I were gonna sit in on it, and the leadership literally said like, what are you doing? You can't be here, you don't belong in this meeting anymore, go pack your bags to go home. And I was like, wow, okay. So I was there for 2.5 more days. I was quite literally shunned by every single staff member. What was gonna be my outreach leader had my passport, and she would not even come give it to me. She gave it to another student to give to me. I had a 2.5 hour drive to the airport, and I contacted my base leader and said, hey, I need help getting to the airport. Could you help me? I was completely ignored. Something else that was really concerning to myself and my family after I came back home was my mom did an extensive amount of research in order to try and talk to somebody that was higher up than my base, someone that my base was accountable to, and there was no one. There is no one that the base or the leadership is accountable to that they could tell us or that we could find. I am not bitter toward them. I'm not angry at them. I've forgiven them. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not still heartbroken. My heart definitely does hurt still. Also, I came home almost 5 months ago. I just want to say that. I came home at the beginning of December. So yeah, I've been home for almost 5 months and been processing all of this. When I got home, things got worse quickly for me. I went into a downward spiral. I came home very angry. I was extremely disappointed. I was heartbroken. I was very confused. I was feeling so many emotions so strongly, and I didn't understand why. Quite frankly, I still don't understand why I felt all of it so strongly. I came home just very worried about the people that stayed, because I was seeing some of them quite literally before my eyes be brainwashed and believe everything that was being taught. It was so unbiblical. I would ask for a biblical reference to things, and they told me they couldn't give me any. When I came home, I was just so spent and exhausted in every way possible. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I was just drained. I am not someone that, like, I never cried in front of people, ever. Toward the end of me being in YWAM and when I came home, I was literally in a constant state of crying. I could not gather myself. I was just so confused and exhausted, and I didn't know how to process anything. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know if I made the right decision coming home, and I felt very guilty coming home because the entire GTS, they made a big emphasis of like, people have donated so much for you to be here. So coming home, I felt like I was disappointing everybody, and I also was like stripped from the community of YWAM. I will say this, it's great to be surrounded by like-minded people that are the same age as you, that want to pursue Jesus like you want to pursue Jesus, but to live in an environment like that is very unrealistic. Like, that's not the real world. I came home with the expectation that like that's how life was going to be here, and it just wasn't. YWAM is not the real world. It's just, you're in a bubble. It's really an unrealistic way of living. I was just such a wreck. I was just so emotional. I got very depressed very quickly. I couldn't even think about YWAM without just like sobbing or being like very angry. And so it got to the point where I just stuffed because I didn't want to feel those feelings anymore, but I didn't know how to deal with them. So I just stuffed them down, wouldn't allow myself to think about it. I have a lot of triggers now. I get flashbacks to it a lot, like almost daily. Something will like transport me back to a moment, some moments that I hadn't even thought of in a long time. Sadly, there's worship songs that I can't even listen to anymore because it's a trigger. There's certain words and phrases that I can't say anymore because it's a trigger. Like I said, being back home, I just got super depressed. I couldn't sleep at night, just very restless. My mind was constantly racing. I came back questioning everything. I came back home questioning my parents. I came back home questioning God himself. I literally questioned the existence of God after I had been in a DTS like this. I questioned God's goodness a lot. I questioned myself. I questioned so many questions because so much like trust and authority issues happened. I'm definitely still in the process of healing. It's hard to navigate all of it. I know that this video was like super scattered and I'm sorry, but I hope that this can give just a little bit of insight to someone or to someone that's already been through YWAM and you're watching this and you've experienced something similar, like you're not alone at all. I know I felt that way when I was coming home. I guess that's it for this video. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll link my Instagram down below. You can DM me. You can email me. I'll also put my email down there. I'd be happy to answer questions or talk more in depth about things, certain topics or whatever. Any of you guys would like that.